morning, everyone.
Morning.
How is everybody today?
Awesome.
This is like a carnival atmosphere out here. Don't mind my Boston accent, but I'm going to go through the rules and regulations and stuff like that in just a minute. We're going to have the we're going to start off with the special meeting, and then we'll go to the annual. What I'd like to ask is if anybody feels sick or woozy or anything like that, we have an ambulance on scene. We have the fire department EMTs on scene. Everybody can get help, but I really want to know if people are starting to get woozy, because it's going to be really hot out here today, and I don't want anybody to get hurt.
Have them raise both their hands.
What?
Have them raise both their hands if that's a problem.
Oh, so if you do have any problems, you do feel sick or anything like that, please raise both of your hands and just wave, and we're going to get somebody right to you. All the guys of the fire department are right back there, and we have the EMTs. I'll turn it over to Tim.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'll be quick. Ray has served this town in so many ways and so many roles, from Finance Committee to Board of Selectmen, on the fire department, 21 years or more. I work with him as moderator on 2 different stints for Ray. It's been an absolute pleasure, and he's been instrumental in getting us through town meetings such as this. So I'm going to be quiet, but I did want him to be recognized by this body as he runs this meeting, and we have this plaque to dedicate and recognize him for his service. Thank you. Thank you. I'll shake your hand, but I'm not signing.
Are you, David, are you? It's up to you. Yeah, come on. We're going to get through this real quick.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everyone. To follow up on Tim's comments, I wanted to come and thank Ray for his 20 years of dedicated service as the moderator to our wonderful town. We certainly wouldn't be able to do today or any of the last meetings without you. So without further ado, I have a House of Representatives citation that reads, "Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Mr. Ray Mead in recognition of your 20 years of dedicated service to the town of Grafton and to our community as the Grafton Town Moderator. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all of your endeavors." It's given the 20th of June, 2020. It's signed by the Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo, and State Representative David Mradian. So, Ray, thank you for everything.
Did I mention that this is my last meeting? It is. So thank you very much, David and Tim. I appreciate the comments and the stuff that you gave me. So at this point, I'd like to ask Candy LaValle, our town clerk, to read the return of the warrant.
Commonwealth, am I good? Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Special Town Meeting Warrant, June 20, 2020. To any of the constables of the town of Grafton and the county of Worcester, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Grafton qualified to vote in elections and town affairs to meet on and in the Grafton High School football field gymnasium at the Grafton High School on Saturday, the 20th day of June, 2020. Rain date, Sunday, the 21st day of June, 2020. At 9:00 a.m. and act on the following articles. And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up an attested copy thereof in some conspicuous place in each of the precincts of the town at least 14 days before said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of meeting as aforesaid. Given under our hands this 27th day of May in the year of our Lord 2020, Select Board, Jennifer Thomas, Chair, Doreen DeFazio, Vice Chair, Peter Carlson, Clerk, Donna Stock, and Edward Prisby. I have complied with the requirements of the above warrant and with the Town of Grafton bylaws by posting an attest copy of the warrant in some conspicuous place in each of the precincts of the town on the above date. Susan M. Fiacco, Constable of Grafton.
Thank you, Candy. Just a couple of things to go over. If you'd like to speak to an article, please go to one of the four microphones that are located in the aisles. Please observe social distancing. Please state your name and each time you speak. Shouting and outbursts will not be tolerated at any time, and probably I can't hear them from way back there anyway. Everyone received a wristband, correct? Can you put up your hands? Great, thank you. When a vote is called, please raise the hand that has the wristband on it. We have water all over the field. It was donated. Some of it was donated by the Grafton Police Department, and some of it was donated by Representative Meridian. We have cooling stations if you get hot. Tents over there, tents back there. We have misters under tents. And there will be some changes in the format to speed up the meeting process, and that's once we get to the annual. And I will explain that. And I'm social distancing. And we'll start off. Article 1.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Thomas.
is my mic working?
I hope so.
Okay. I move the town vote to approve the following budget transfers for the purpose of adjusting certain line items within the FY20 operating budget as shown on the screen.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? By the way, if you do want to discuss a motion, wave your hands or yell out or something like that. It's a lot easier for me to see that. With no further discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed? Dave? We do have people in the gym. I declare the motion carried. Article 2.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. DeFazio.
I move that the town vote to transfer $80,000 from the streetlight account 1.800.6122.6222 and transfer $7,887 from free cash for the purposes of balancing the FY20 snow and ice account.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried. I'm sorry. I have to wait for Dave. I'm sorry. Dave? I declare the motion carried.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Carlson?
I move the town vote to transfer $739.32 from free cash to pay the following prior fiscal year bills. $251.25 to Applied Geographics, $228.19 to Verizon, $110 to Mike's Mobile, $149.88 to Gatehouse Media.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, this requires a 9/10 vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? I declare the motion carried by the required 9/10. Article 4.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Prisby.
I move that the town vote to transfer $10,000 from free cash to fund the sick and vacation buyback account.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 5.
I move the town vote to transfer $53,957 from the CPA Affordable Housing Reserve Account to the Grafton Affordable Housing Trust to be used in accordance with CPA guidelines for community housing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 6.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Thomas.
I move the town vote to approve Article 6 as printed in the June 20th, 2020 special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? I declare the motion carried by the required 2/3. Article 7,
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. DeFazio.
I move that the town vote to extend the provisions of Article 20, Section 4-20, and allow for the carryover of more than 10 days of vacation time for employees at the sole discretion of the town administrator for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 to expire June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Carlson.
I move the town vote to allow the Select Board to dispose of the property at 8 Pine Street pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, under such terms and conditions as it deems to be in the best interest of the town.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? This requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? I declare the motion carried by the required 2/3.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Carlson.
motion to adjourn special.
Motion
town
to adjourn special meeting. All those in favor? I didn't think anybody was going to be opposed, so we're all set. We'll start the annual in 5 minutes.
All right, so that's that.
Okay, good morning, Grafton. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Grafton Annual Town Meeting. I'm going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is to the back, right behind that tree. You can just see a little bit of it. And I'll ask the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Jen Thomas, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I want to start off by saying thanks to a bunch of people, and I'm going to make it very short. Everything today is going to be very short. But this whole operation came together over the last 4.5 to 5 weeks. Yesterday, it culminated with what you see here, and hopefully everything will work and everybody will be safe. But I want to thank Pam Reardon and the CERT team, the Citizens Emergency Response Team, Marianne DeVries from the Medical Reserve Corps, Chief Gauthier, Grafton Fire Department, Chief Crapo with the Grafton Police Department, Tony LeMay from the school, the election workers, Cindy I, Joanne Duncan, Candy LaValle, Tim McInerney, Rebecca Meekins, Paul Canoyer and the DPW, Dave Robbins, Chris Mead, and Chris Mead is running operations. This has been quite a task, and so far it's working out very well. Visitors are to sit in the first, well, this is from me being inside. Visitors are to sit in these rows over here. Visitors associated with boards or committees can sit with the boards or committees if they've cleared it with me prior to the start of the meeting. If you would like to speak on an article, please go to one of the microphones located in the seating area. There are 4. One in this aisle, one in that aisle, and then 2 in the back. Shouting and outbursts will not be tolerated at any time. Everyone received a wristband to be able to vote. When a vote is called, please raise your hand and that has the wristband on it. If we do have to count votes, we will have people available to count votes if they're close. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but we'll get through it. We're going to do one section at a time, pretty much the same way we do it in the auditorium. We have cooling stations. We have an ambulance on site, actually more than 2 EMTs from the Grafton Fire Department on the field. There'll be some changes to the format to speed up the meeting process so that we can finish up before the heat of the day. Like it's not hot now. The budget will be read by the town clerk, but the entire list of budget items, expenses, salaries, and miscellaneous will not be read. The only thing that will be read will be the total of the department budget. If you do want to hold on any one of those things, you will have time. Just yell out "hold," and we will go back to that at a later time after we vote on the budget. Introductions: Town Administrator Tim McInerney, Assistant Town Administrator Rebecca Meekins, Town Attorney Ginny Kramer, Town Clerk Candy LaValle, Representative David Meridian is here and brought us a bunch of water. I'd like to appoint Dave Robbins as Deputy Moderator. He is in the high school gym. And two other deputy moderators for today are Dan Conker and Bruce Spinney. If those names sound familiar, they both want to do this. And I wish them both luck. I would now like to ask Candy LaValle to read the return of the warrant.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Town of Grafton, Annual Town Meeting Warrant, June 20, 2020. To any of the constables of the Town of Grafton and the County of Worcester, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the Town of Grafton qualified to vote in the elections in town affairs to meet on and in the Grafton High School football field gymnasium at the Grafton High School on Saturday, the 20th day of June, 2020. Rain date on Sunday, the 21st day of June, 2020, at 9:30 a.m. and act on the following articles. And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up an attested copy thereof in some conspicuous place in each of the precincts of the town at least 14 days before said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of meeting as aforesaid. Given under our hands this 27th day of May in the year of our Lord 2020, Select Board, Jennifer Thomas, Chair, Doreen DeFazio, Vice Chair, Peter Carlson, Clerk, Donna Stock, Edward Prisby. I have complied with the requirements of the above warrant and with the Town of Grafton bylaws by posting an attest copy of the warrant in some conspicuous place in each of the precincts of the town on the above date. Susan M. Fiacco, Constable of Grafton.
Thank you, Candy. Yep. I'd like to call on Chairman of the Finance Committee, Matt Often, for a presentation. You got that mic on? Turn that mic on.
Check, check. Thank you. The Finance Committee would like to recognize Sue Fiacco. She's retiring, actually, so we're really sad for the loss, but we do wish her the best of luck in the future. Sue's been with us since 1987. She's both our assistant as well as the constable. Her years of dedicated service have just been amazing. Last year and this year have both been very difficult years for the Finance Committee, and she just has been this bedrock of support for all of us. And for me personally, she's been a mentor throughout the year as this is my first year as chair. So we thank her for all of her years of service, and we'd like to retire the Finance Committee gavel and give it to her in recognition of her service. So come on up, Sue.
Thank you, Sue. I think you're too young to retire, but okay, let's get going. Article 1,
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Carlson.
I move the town vote to hear reports from the Library Building Committee, DPW Building Committee, and to accept the 2019 Annual Town Report without ratification of its contents.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. There is a presentation from the Library Committee, Library Building Committee, and it's going to be wicked short.
Wicked short indeed. I have 2 slides. Just quick construction updates, really, for anybody that hasn't been by either of these job sites recently. The DPW building, we're really about at completion. We've got some final inspections to get done, install some equipment like vehicle lifts, and then we'll be ready to move in July. We're looking forward to having an open house in the fall, so look forward to that. The library, if you've been by in the last few days, it's changed significantly. Steel is going up, so you'll see that going on for the next several weeks. The contaminated soil has been removed. We've got a very clean site at this point, and we expect to see the building weather tight by fall. We do expect also to see paving of the parking lot later on this summer, if not, it was originally supposed to be in the fall. Now it's been moved up to this summer. That's really it. Just a quick update. If you haven't seen these projects recently, take a look when you go in by the library, especially. It's changing by the day. And again, the DPW project is pretty much wrapped up and looking great. So thanks.
Okay, further discussion on Article 1? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 2. Ms. DeFazio.
I move the town vote to appoint Bridget
Your mic's not on.
Middle.
I move the town vote to appoint Bridget Weber as trustee of the Nelson Park and Memorial for a term of 3 years.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
can we do the term renewals, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator.
I declare the motion carried.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I move the town.
Hang
vote-
on, Peter.
Yes.
I forgot to do the term renewals. So, the Finance Committee term renewals for this year, the following Finance Committee members will renew their 3-year Finance Committee term from 2020 to 2023, effective July 1st, 2020. Sue Robbins, Heather McHugh, and Mark Haddad. Article 3,
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Carlson.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $814,270 for the purpose of paying the town's share of the net operating costs of the Blackstone Valley Vocational School District for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2020.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 4,
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Prisby.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $48,227 to fund the principal and interest cost for FY21 to be incurred by the Blackstone Valley Vocational Regional School District for its capital expansion project.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed?
Mr. Moderator.
I declare the motion carried. Hang on,
Sorry,
everybody's excited.
moving it along.
I know you, trust me, I want to get it done just as much as you do. Ms. Stark,
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $61,096,789, appropriate $2,926,654 from sewer receipts, and transfer $22,814 from sewer betterments, for a total appropriation of $64,046,257, all as recommended by the town administrator and as shown in the Finance Committee's printed report for the purpose of funding the operation of the several town departments in the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We'll have
Mr.
a,
Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends
okay, go ahead.
passage of the article.
Okay. We have, Tim McInerney will do a brief presentation on the budget.
Good morning, everyone. I will be brief. I apologize for the heat. I've been waiting all winter for this. We finally made it, but didn't quite expect it to be quite like this. Anyways, relative to the budget, this has been a very difficult time relative to COVID-19 and the devastating effect on the local economy across the country, and certainly across Massachusetts. I'll just tell you quickly that we have a balanced budget. We have no new hires in this budget proposed. We are not increasing pay for any non-union employees that are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. And in this budget, in collaboration with the Finance Committee, we were able to do a second round of reductions due to anticipated revenue reductions from our original estimate to not use any one-time revenue to balance this budget. As you know, we start with the revenue forecasting every year with 20 departments in mind, and we break their spending into categories. The snapshot of the budget that you see on the screen breaks down those categories for all those departments. And I always like to show the dollar increase changes, the percentage increase changes, and then all the way to the right on that snapshot of the budget shows where the money in total gets distributed to. So it certainly is a quick snapshot for the community to see how it spends its money. In terms of process, I'm not going to bore you with that, but you know that the Finance Committee has liaisons to certain departments, and they go and visit with department heads and vet every dollar that is proposed. We have a 400-page document that I'm not going to bother you with, but it is on the website. It came down off the website. It will go back up after this meeting. Every detail for every dollar is itemized in those documents that we fully vet against the revenue that we have. So basically, under revenue, we had estimates that we were going to increase pre-COVID. Post-COVID comes along, and we had to make adjustments of about $617,000, so we reduced our revenue estimates, which forced us to reduce the expenses. We've done that, and we're presenting a balanced budget to the group, obviously vetted by the Finance Committee. I'll take questions. I think that might be the most effective way if someone had a question. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
As I said earlier, Candy LaValle, the town clerk, will read the budget and read the line items, but she will not read the details. She will only read the total of each department. And if you have a question on any one of those appropriations, please yell hold. We will remove that from the vote, and then we will discuss it, and then vote on it after. Candy?
Town moderator, $300. Board of Selectmen, $36,600. Town administrator, $393,750. Finance committee, $15,707. Reserve fund, $50,000. Town accountant, $153,932. Board of Assessors, $206,294. Collector Treasurer, $287,705. Legal, $108,000. Human Resources, $94,350. MIS, GIS, $142,320. Copiers, $28,300. Town clerk, $172,423. Election and registration, $53,505. CATV Oversight Committee, $2,833. Conservation Committee, $63,243. Planning Board, $157,143. Appeals Board, $28,375. Economic Development, $12,300. Farnhamsville Firehouse, $1,500. South Grafton Community House, $15,550. Municipal Center, $334,834. Unclassified personnel, $7,344,949. Unclassified expenses, $8,121,864. Fuel, $100,000. Police Department, $2,335,744. Fire Department, $748,405. Building Inspector, $178,592. Gas Inspector, $13,815. Plumbing Inspector, $13,700. Sealer of Weights and Measures, $9,578. Wiring Inspector, $15,535. Emergency Management, $8,150. Animal Control, $21,930. Animal Inspector, $2,900. School Department, $37,926,369. Highway Department, Engineering Department, $182,118. Highway Department, $1,086,571. Sanitation, $982,878. Excuse me one moment. Snow and Ice Control, $150,000. Street lighting, $47,000. Sewer Department, $1,097,399. Cemetery and Parks, $265,976. Health Department, $162,823. Council on Aging, $224,659. Together We Can, $3,300. Veteran Services, $191,837. Library is $869,261. Recreation Commission, $290,565. Nelson Library and Park, $4,850. Retirement of debt is $4,173,964. Debt interest, $2,457,510. Non-appropriated expenses is $3,571,887. Total is $67,618,144.
Thank you, Candy. There were no holds here or in the gym. Is there discussion on the motion? Yes, ma'am. Is anybody else's chapstick melting? Because mine is.
Hi, Mary Smith. I'm just a little confused. The last number read was 67 million, but 64 million is shown on the screen.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. McInerney.
There's two pieces of the appropriation. There's non-appropriated amounts that she read that are not in this motion. That, for example, the 1.5 million for the road stabilization account is in that additional non-appropriated amount, which actually is voted on by the select board and submitted to the assessors to raise and appropriate.
Does that answer your question? No? So there's a difference of $3 million, correct? There's a difference of $3 million. I think just if you could explain where we get from 64 million to 67 million, and that would be better. Yeah, Tim.
Hello again. Those are funds that are appropriate and other places in the budget that we'll get to in later articles, and in the road stabilization is the best example I could give you. But there are pieces in this warrant later that have those appropriated amounts. Thank you. Sorry.
So the vote is only, we're only appropriating 64. Right, we're only appropriating 64.
Okay, so what we're voting on is exactly what's in the warrant, which was $64,046,257. Great. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 6.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Thomas.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate $863,375 to fund the following line items as shown on the screen in the annual operating budget contingent upon the successful passage of Proposition 2.5 override for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020. The things are on the screen.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Moderator. Ray?
Mr. Hoffman.
Yes, Finance Committee recommends passage of the article as presented.
Thank you. Further discussion? Dave, do you have any discussion in the gym? I'm sorry, he hasn't gotten back to me. With no further discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 7,
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. DeFazio.
I move that the town appropriate $320,000 from the PEG access account to fund the recommended Grafton Community Television budget as recommended by the Cable Oversight Committee for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 8.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Carlson.
I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $794,171 from free cash and transfer $331,299 from the account shown on screen.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried.
Mr. Moderator.
Article 9.
Mr. Moderator.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Article 9.
No, I just wanted to double check the rest of that motion on Article 8. There was additional on our next page that was not read. Is that okay?
It's, yeah, I called it. So.
Yeah, it was on the second page.
It's on our second page.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not, it was on the screen, it's not on our, it's on
Okay.
our second
Okay.
page. Yes,
It just wasn't read. I just wanted
Yep.
to double check. Okay,
no problem.
thank you.
Article 9,
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Prisby.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $497,382 for state aid highway purposes as requested by the Select Board to be reimbursed by the Commonwealth under the provisions of the Transportation Bond Bill, so-called, and amendments thereto, for roadway construction, reconstruction, and improvements, including surface treatments and other work incidental thereto.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Ray,
Yes.
they have a discussion here in the gym.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, this was originally for Article 8, but it still applies. Those of us in the gym cannot see the screen clearly because of how the cameras are set up.
Ray, I did not hear the question from this one. She can't see the screen from the gym. Can you go back out the light? You can't see the screen in the gym.
Dave, can you adjust that screen so people can see it?
I'm not sure. Let's check it.
No, it's not. Mr. Moderator?
Mr. McInerney.
So the way we had to set this meeting up is we have hopefully the best technology we can have. Cable shooting this field, and that's what's being broadcast in there, so they don't see the crispness of the slides that you all see in the field. So it's just the technology, it's just being rebroadcast. I can't get any better than what it is.
Okay, well, we also have people on the way up there to see if we can do something else, and in the meantime, we'll do our best. Ed, you already read and we seconded this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Discussion on Article 9. Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 10.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Stock.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to accept and enter into contracts for the expenditure of any funds allotted by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for construction, reconstruction, or improvements to public roads.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 11.
Mr. Moderator?
Ms. Thomas.
I move that the town vote to authorize the total expenditures for the revolving funds as shown on the screen pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E1/2, for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, to be expended in accordance with the bylaws heretofore approved.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Question.
Oh, wow.
Question from the gym here.
Okay.
Can you explain to me what a revolving account means? I'm not familiar with that term. I don't know what it means.
Mr. McInerney.
To the gym, correct? Am I good? A revolving account is simply revenues that come in for specific purposes that can only be used for the same purposes that are on this list. So the state requires us every year to vote these. People were here in 2008, 2009. I'd like to tell them these used to be broken out into separate articles. We merged them together for a little bit more expeditious movement here. So we raise these funds through these various departments, and then we do the things that are listed on the screen with those funds to be expended. So there's no general fund or tax dollars being used in this particular article.
Thank you very much.
We have another question in here.
Linda Hassinger, George Hill Road. We can read the slides better, thank you for that, but you do have to make sure that you bring forward the article, that we're on the right article, because we were about 3 behind. Thank you.
On the screen? Further discussion on Article 11. Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 12.
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. DeFazio.
I move that the town vote to amend Article 40 of the general bylaws to include the Recreation Department revolving account with a revenue source of all fees received for the Recreation Department programs and activities to be expended at the direction of the town administrator for the purposes of funding Recreation Department operations for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2020.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion?
The screen in the gym is still kind of behind.
Discussion on Article 12? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 13.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Carlson.
I move the town vote to pass over Article 13.
Motion made and seconded to pass over Article 13 with no further discussion. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Is everybody doing okay? Okay, great, great. Article 14,
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Prisby.
I move that the town vote to authorize the treasurer-collector, with the approval of the Select Board, to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of the revenue of the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, in accordance with the provisions of the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 4, and amendments thereto, and to issue a note or notes as may be given for a period of less than 1 year in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 17, and amendments thereto.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried.
Mr. Moderator.
I'm sorry, Ms. Stock. If I turn away, then I lose my focus, no? Ms. Stock.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $50,000, said sum to be added to the unemployment compensation account for the purposes of paying the unemployment compensation expenses of the town.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 16.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Thomas.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Select Board to request the funding of transportation services from WRTA and to contract for and provide elderly bus services for the town of Grafton for the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 17.
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. DeFazio.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $12,000 from free cash for the purpose of funding police department mobile radio replacements, mobile data terminals, and tasers.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Yes,
Finance-
Mr. Often.
Finance Committee recognizes that this appropriation was already done in Article 6 with the contingency budget, and we recommend that we either pass over these until the fall, or we amend the motion to include a contingency language that these would only take effect if the override did not pass.
Well, unfortunately, we can't, unless the warrant article is retracted, we can't we can't pass over it. And I believe that in the discussion that we had the other night, on Thursday night, we said that this would be taken care of at the October town meeting. And I think that's the way it should be taken up.
All right?
Okay? Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, let's do that again. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay.
16, 8 in favor, 16 against.
Declare the motion defeated. Article 18.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Carlson.
I move the town vote to appropriate $102,000 from free cash for the purpose of funding the fire department equipment, including a Hirschstrong arm rescue tool, Ripple Jaws, Erraticus tool, turnout gear, boots, pagers, and thermal imager.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Often.
Finance Committee has the exact same concern with this one.
Okay. Matt will handle it the same way, okay? Further discussion on Article 18. Yes, sir.
Bill Hanley, Brigham Hill Road. Can you explain to us what's going on with this? I mean, we appropriated money for the override, and now we're saying no?
Mr. McInerney?
I'm not sure if that's for me, but I will tell you that we passed a balanced budget in Article 5, and then 6 was a contingent budget if the override were to pass on Tuesday. If it were to fail, to make the Article 5 balance, we remove these items from the operating budget and asking town meeting for free cash to fund these particular items that are needed for public safety. Thank you.
Okay, so why are we voting on these now if we've been okayed?
They are okay, provided the override passes. So we're trying to not have another town meeting or make the fire or police department wait until October to have the money appropriated.
Okay, so the override has passed.
The override is not passed, sir.
It's not passed?
It's Tuesday. The election is Tuesday.
Oh, okay. We have to vote on this.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So now we're saying no to these.
I'm not saying no to this.
Mr. Moderator.
No, you're not saying no. You just, if you vote them down, if the override passes on Tuesday, these items will be in it. If I'm wrong, somebody tell me. Matt?
Yeah, our concern is just if we pass the contingent budget, the override passes, and we pass these articles, that this money will be appropriated twice, and then it sits in account until town meeting. So our thought is it would be better to just bring these articles to town meeting in the fall, if the contingent budget doesn't pass.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. McInerney.
I know there's another question. When you just passed the capital budget you just passed for $1.1 million, there were $331,000 in various accounts where we didn't spend all that money. So we will not spend this money if the override were to pass on Tuesday for these articles. We would take it out of the general fund appropriation. And these would be there in the bank for you to reappropriate at a subsequent town meeting.
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. Thomas?
And just to clarify, if we do not pass these articles, the police department will have to wait until October to purchase this equipment now. And if this article does not pass, the fire department will have to wait until October to get this equipment if the ballot does not pass on Tuesday. If the ballot passes on Tuesday, they can go out and purchase their equipment. But if the ballot does not pass on Tuesday, these items will not be able to be funded until October, if they are not passed here today.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, can you just confirm that if the override passes on Tuesday, what happens to the $12,000? We all just voted not to spend that money.
So if the override, and I'll answer this, if the override passes on Tuesday, the $12,000 is in that override in the supplemental budget. And what Mr. Often was talking about was if you voted yes on the police department, which you didn't, we would have to adjust these two warrant articles at the fall town meeting. So that's what is what's taking place. Does that explain it? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Carrie Hogan. I think it's clear that not everybody understood when they voted on the prior article what the ramifications were. Is it possible to revisit the prior article with that understanding?
No, it's not, unfortunately. Sorry. Further discussion on Article 18?
From the gym.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Gopal Shenoy, 5 Chipper Drive. So I am still confused. So if the article override passes, and if we vote yes for this, does that mean that the funds are available twice?
Yes.
And what happens in that case?
You go back to the October town meeting, and you will have a warrant article that reduces the amount by $102,000.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Further discussion? Yes.
Hi, Diane Gagney. This 102, we're talking about these things. Is there anything included in that that's not talked about on that screen?
Tim?
No, everything that's on the screen is covered.
Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 18? Yes, sir.
John Hall, Worcester Street. If I'm not, you probably know better than I, but isn't it possible for a town meeting to vote to reconsider an article?
No, not since 1986.
Because that's how long.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Karen Fleming Brooks, East Street. I just have a quick question. If we vote not to fund this right now on recommendations of the Finance Committee, are there any representatives of the fire department who would say that this is emergent, that they need equipment today? We're talking just a couple of months before October.
Chief Gauthier.
Yeah, he's walking.
Michael Gauthier, 17 Main Street, Fire Chief. These tools right here are normally in our operating budget. They have been for years. We replace aging equipment every year. It really hasn't increased in our budget in the last 20 years. I mean, we get the same different equipment that's aged. We figure out what we need to get. We try to keep it within the $94,000 to $100,000 range. Turnout gear, the only thing I'll say with turnout gear is NFPA compliant is only good for 10 years. So we have to replace the turnout gear every year. With 55 personnel right now, we replace 10 to 12 sets a year with the leather boots so that they're fully equipped and in compliant. As for the Hearst tools, I'm trying to replace tools that are 20 plus years old and trying to get everything that's the same on all my apparatus, so no matter who takes it, they know the tool. pages we need all the time because that's how we're alerted to go to a fire. Thermal imager, we replace those because they're only good for so many years, and it helps us in search and rescue, and it also helps us locating hotspots and fires. Is it a necessity? Yeah, it's always a necessity for our equipment. Whether we get it now or we get it later, I mean, that's up to the townspeople. But those are the equipment pieces that we need to replace, and we do that every year. We replace different items. Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 18. Thank you, Chief. Yes, sir.
Bill McCusker, 40 Blanchard Road. So I think a lot of other people think we made a mistake on the last motion. Is it possible to amend this motion?
It's always possible to amend a motion.
I would do it if A, the details of the previous motion were printed in the warrant, and B, I had a pen. Because I know you need it in writing, but if anybody has the ability to amend the motion to include Article 17 details, I certainly would be second it, and I would vote in favor of that. Do you have all the details?
So now it's a yes? Yeah. Ray, can we just discuss the scope of the article?
So, to amend the article to include the police department is actually outside the scope of the Article 18 that we're talking about. So we cannot amend the article. We can continue discussion on Article 18. Further discussion on Article 18. Yes, sir.
Robert Aberg, 43 South Street. Is it fair to say that if it passes on Tuesday in the election, that it'll be funded?
Correct.
Yeah, just make sure everybody understands that. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah, if it passes on Tuesday, this will be funded, and you will go back to the October town meeting, and you will reduce this amount to zero.
Ray?
What?
Hi, Terry Turgeon,
Oh,
17.
Terry, you scared me.
I know.
Jeez.
I'll step back. I'm not usually this loud.
No, yes, you are.
Oh, stop. Is there any, I don't know if folks understand the implications of having voted no on 17. If this passes on Tuesday, obviously it's funded. Is there any way under town meeting rules to go back to Article 17?
No.
Okay.
You're welcome. Further discussion on Article 18. This is not the, these are not the articles I thought we were going to get hung up on.
Hi, Lisa Rice, 40 Brams Road. I think something that's very important to note here is that these are items that are normally in our budget. The reason they were pulled out is so that we could present a balanced budget, keeping things that might have, should have been cut. So this is really, should be a discussion about the way we approach budgeting. Keeping these items in the budget that have been there every single year is important and should not rely on a vote on town meeting floor for things that are necessary. Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 18. Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Dave? I declare the motion carried. Article 19.
Moderator.
Mr. Prisby.
I move the town vote to allow the select board to dispose of the property at 27 Upton Street, known as the DPW Garage, pursuant to MGL Chapter 30B, under such terms and conditions as it deems to be in the best interest of the town.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. There be presentation by the town administrator and a planning board report.
I'm going to let these slides advance a little bit. Many of you know the old DPW facility will be vacated to move to a new facility, and that has been a little bit of an eyesore for some time, and we want to have the permission of town meeting to sell the land and a subsequent article to change the zone to allow mixed-use development, both commercial and residential. It's an odd-shaped lot. We did some outreach. We got a grant from the state to do this zone change proposal. We just wanted to find the highest and best use and the highest and best yield for the reuse to increase and diversify the tax base. So that's why we propose to allow the board to be able to sell this through an RFP process and to get the land to its highest and best use with a subsequent zone change. So I won't take up any more time, but if you have questions as you go, I'll try to be here to answer them.
Presentation from the planning board. I think Bob Hassinger is in the gym.
I have the planning board report on Article 20. At its meeting on June 8th, 2020, the Grafton Planning Board conducted a public hearing to consider the proposed amendments to the Grafton zoning bylaw by amending Section 12 entitled Village Mixed Use District to allow for the creation of a new VMU district.
Point of order,
Yes, sir.
are we not on Article 19?
We are on Article 19. And I had a planning board report written down on Article 19. I've just been informed that that Bob, you'll have to wait till Article 20. Okay?
I think that's what Bob was expecting. He was a little bit surprised to be called up here.
Well, I love to surprise Bob Hassinger. It's what I love to do. Further discussion on Article 19. Yes.
I just have Karen Fleming Brooks, East Street. I just have a quick question about any liability we may have because this was a garage for many, many years. EPA standards have changed, well, maybe not now, but EPA standards had changed. And so I'm curious just to make sure that there has been some investigation in any liability or anything we would have to do as a town to do any type of hazard waste cleanup.
EPA regulations have changed? That's got to be incredible and stupendous and stupid.
It's a great question. The town's owned this for a number of years. Whatever's there for a liability, we would want to put in the transfer documents in the RFP to get release from that liability. We've done phase one. We've done test borings. We know there are some materials on site that we actually don't think are attributable to the site. We think it's being drawn through the water source to the site. But to pin that down, it costs a tremendous amount of money to get out from underneath that cloud, if you will. But we will ask to transfer that liability to the new owner. And obviously, they'll have to clean the site if it is dirty or remediate it off-site if it's from some other location for that dirty dirt or dirty water, whatever the case may be.
Further discussion on Article 19.
Elizabeth Anderson, Glen Street. With regards to this, when you started the process for the new DPW, did you account what the potential offset would be from the sale of this property? And then with regards to the environmental, since you're in phase one, puts you in the MCP loop according to DEP. If you try to transfer this, it's gonna reduce what revenue the town will get from this sale, because somebody's gotta pay for the cleanup.
When we went through the analysis with Horsley Whitney to do the outreach to find its highest and best use, we realized that whatever cleanup would have to be made would reduce the overall price of the land. But the value in taxes is really what we're looking for when we want to diversify with a mixed-use zone at this particular location as a gateway into the common and into Grafton from Upton. That's what we're looking to do. So the tax revenue is really the benefit, not just the sale of the property. Obviously, the community doesn't pay tax on land that it owns. It's just in the total value of the community. So I know that the woman walked away from the mic, but did that answer your question? Thank you. Very sorry.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the same. You said you built a new DPW facility. Where did the money come from? I mean, don't we have to sell an old property to buy a new property? So where is the money going when you sell it?
So the DPW is complete, and the appropriation was done 2.5 years ago.
So did you, when you build the money, you must have taken a loan or?
It went to bond. The DPW facility went to bond for $13 million.
So when you sell this, is this money going to go back in paying off that bond?
No, it's not. You can't pay off loans like that in municipal government. That would go, any money that comes from the sale of this property will go into the general fund and be appropriated at future town meetings.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Further discussion on article? Yes, sir.
Question, is the tree barn part of this parcel, and will that be separated if it is?
It is.
I can answer that.
Okay.
It is right now. We know that there's a historic significance to the tree barn, but certainly needs some work. When we put together the RFP for this proposal, we'll ask for alternatives for the use of that. So it'll be up to the board to transfer that land, so there'll still be control by the board at that point to transfer.
We did discuss this with the consultant for community preservation that's working on our plan, and she said the lead abatement and restoration of that is eligible. So it's not just a repainting project. So there would possibly be CPC funds available.
All right, and I'll just tell the group that building is kind of cold storage for DPW. They built as big as they could of a facility for the $14 million, but it's not big enough. There's a lot of, there's a lot of things in that tree barn, from sawhorses to picnic tables to hay bales to tires that have no other home. So we kind of need to replace it or keep that stuff in that location.
Further discussion? Yes.
Hi, Linda Hutchins at 3 Spanish River Road. That property seems like a pretty important part of our town center. And I think I'd like to hear a little more about what the property would turn into. And maybe consider that the town might want to hang on to that and do something for the town. So I'm also wondering if we are under any current obligation after the Phase 1 environmental study to initiate any type of cleanup, and how soon additional costs would accrue to the town.
I'm gonna do the second question after I have Chris McGoldrick, who's our new town planner, present on the findings that Horsley Whitney Group came up with relative to the new use and what it may look like in the future, and then we'll come back to the environmental piece. So Chris?
Thank you.
So I gave you the slides.
Thank you. we did have Horsley Witten that did a study. They looked at a lot of what's on the site, and they presented this. These are the parcels. So we have, it will include the DPW site, the garage. There's also the post office, and then 2 additional parcels in the front. This is the overview of it. So the existing opportunities that they came up with, so we have, obviously the proximity to the center that we're talking about, landmarks and transit along a main road. The size and the geometry of the lot is both an opportunity, but there's also some constraints. So when we're looking at the redevelopment and the zoning that'll be presented in Article 20, we're looking at a mixed-use development that will address some of the existing challenges, such as market conditions, traffic counts, and the other site constraints. So this is, we did a public open house with Horsley Witten, and they went through a number of different development models. This was one of the preferred options. Again, you can see by doing the mixed-use development, we have a more tightly compact site that is going to be more aligned with the town center and that kind of vision of a development style. We do have parking towards the back of the buildings to the front, and mixed-use live workspace, as well as residential development. This is a view of some of the suburban mixed-use styles of development that we would be looking for in design. Our village mixed-use development does require these design elements during the review process with the planning board. So we did do, there were some adjustments to the village mixed-use existing bylaw. We added, obviously, the VMU gateway to the map. We adjusted the affordable housing requirements to 10%, which will still allow all of the residential units to be incorporated into our SHI, but still provides that affordable housing units. And it increases the potential density to achieve a traditional village design aligned with the town center development that's existing. So these are some of the visualizations that Horsley Witten developed for us. You can see that kind of compact development, but in a traditional town center design style that we'll be looking to achieve. Yep.
Further discussion on Article 19. Sure.
It's Linda Bent, 93 Millbury Street. Are we still talking about Depot Street, Upton Street, rather?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Anybody who goes into Grafton Center knows what a nightmare the traffic is, and there's no parking. Anybody who's ever been to Grafton Celebrates the Holidays know what a nightmare it is to find a parking space. Everybody who goes to the concerts on the Common knows what a problem it is when you have a nice evening and then you have to drive home through that mess. And I really think maybe disposal of that property may not be in the best interest of the citizens of Grafton.
So the environmental piece, I'm going to be redundant relative to transferring liability. Like I said, we've done a phase 1. We don't know if the contaminated soil is ours or someone else's responsibility. I will tell you, we pulled the tanks out of the ground there, anticipating moving DPW. We put them above ground. We had a licensed site professional on site, and there was no fuel oil leaked from the tank that we extracted from the ground. So kind of kudos to all of us for having the vision to pull that tank up, get it above ground so we can transfer it to the new facility and save a little bit of money as well. But I hope that answers the question. And parking would be great on the Common, but this is what the group came back to say that they thought the highest and best use would be. It's totally your decision.
Further discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Carrie Hogan. I just wanted to point out that there will be additional parking with the completion of the library expansion and renovation project on the common as well.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article 19? Hearing none, this requires a 2/3 vote. I'm going to read the article again. I'm sorry, yes.
28 Seaver Farm Lane, Sitaraman Ganesan. That's a great property to dump the grass clipping. I mow the yard. You know, it's only on Saturdays the brush disposal area is open, and that too it's bi-weekly. And the town website is not being updated frequently. And where am I supposed to store the grass clippings? In my backyard, it stinks. So much bugs gets attracted, and you know, it's a mess. So it's a great property for the town to hold on to. Maybe give it a year. Maybe someone will come up with a great idea to use that property.
Further discussion on Article 19?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes. Mr. Prisby?
Thanks. Real briefly, I know we don't want to belabor this point here. It's hot out, but this is one of these projects that has been envisioned by the town for a few years now to be able to really do something with this land that focuses our economic development on a few key parcels. One, and they call them gateways to Grafton, and I think the planning department's done a really nice job with this. This is what we want to see them do. We want to see them be proactive. We want to see them develop parcels to increase our economic development, to take some of the tax burden off residential taxpayers. So, you know, we'd strongly encourage you to vote for this and move this project along. Thanks.
Further discussion on Article 19?
Hi.
Yes.
Can you clarify, because the renditions look lovely, and I'm sure many people would love to live in those apartments next to the common, but it does seem like this is additional high-density residential housing being proposed, and I'm questioning whether the tax revenue will compensate for the additional expense of so many more people living in town. So was this not a residential proposal, or is this economic facilities being proposed?
So it's not a specific project being proposed at this time. The visualizations are really just to give a view of what the zoning is looking to achieve. So I understand seeing a text version of the zoning can a lot of times be hard to see what that's going to look to develop. So there would still be a lot of local control and local approval that would have to go through for any specific project. That visualization was just to give a view of what that was looking to achieve. Does that answer the question? We are proposing mixed-use development, so it would potentially be residential and retail as well.
Further discussion? Yes, ma'am, over here.
I request we move the question.
Motion made and seconded to move the question. If you vote in the affirmative, it will cut off all debate to Article 19. If you vote in the negative, it will continue debate on Article 19. All those in favor of moving the question? I'm shocked. All those opposed to moving the question? Again. Question is moved. The article before you is disposal of property at 27 Upton Street. I move that the town vote to allow the Select Board to dispose of the property at 27 Upton Street known as the DPW Garage pursuant to MGL Chapter 30B under such terms and conditions as it deems in the best interest of the town. This is a 2/3 vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? I declare the motion carried by the required two-thirds. Article 20,
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Stock.
I move that the town vote to amend Section 12 of the Grafton zoning bylaws and the corresponding use regulation schedule to include new language for a Grafton gateway as described in the report of the Planning Board.
Second.
Turn.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Report of the Planning Board.
Bob Hassinger, Vice Chair of the Planning Board. I have the Planning Board's report. At its meeting on June 8th, 2020, the Grafton Planning Board conducted a public hearing to consider the proposed amendments to the Grafton zoning bylaws, ZBL, by amending Section 12 entitled Village Mixed Use District to allow for the creation of a new VMU zoning district designated Village Mixed Use Gateway VMU-GW and revise and reformat the existing language. Board members present were Chairman David Robbins, Vice Chairman myself, Clerk Justin Wood, and members Linda Hassinger and Prabhu Venkatarayan, and Associate Member Vikram Dev. At the public hearing, the town planner reviewed the proposed bylaw changes and supplemental information. The proposed Article 20 related to Article 19, disposal of the property at 27 Upton Street, modernizes the location's zoning to provide additional marketability and development flexibility to the area that addresses potential redevelopment constraints. No comments were provided by the public in attendance. Based on the board's deliberations on the merits of the proposed amendment, the Planning Board voted 5 in favor and 0 opposed to recommend Article 20.
Thank you, Bob. Further discussion on Article 20.
I have one in the gym.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. I just want to make sure that with this zoning bylaw, I'm not familiar with exactly the details. I just want to make sure that there's nothing in there that results in, say, more marijuana stores being allowed because the zoning bylaw was changed. I just want to make sure that none of it is hidden in there. Can you please clarify?
Dave, I think you can answer that question, can't you?
Yeah, there's nothing like that in this. This is strictly for the mixed-use development.
Okay. And I also had a request. There are some of these questions that are very confusing, what you're voting for and not. For example, the police department question was not clear. And I also see this happening most likely with Article 30, the way it's written, because I've read it 2 or 3 times and I have no idea what voting yes or no means. So when these questions come up, if it's kind of contentious, I would encourage if you could explain what voting yes or no means. Thank you.
Will do. Further discussion on Article 20. This requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Declare the motion carried by the required 2/3. Is everybody doing okay? You doing okay? Okay. Article 21.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Thomas.
I vote that the town of Grafton, by and through its Conservation Commission, accept a gift of land consisting of plus or minus 17 acres located at 93 North Street for the purpose of passive recreation and the preservation of open space upon such terms and conditions as are set forth in a deed to be approved by the Select Board and the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. There's a presentation. Short. No, right there, it's fine. Short presentation.
Yes, yes, of course.
Thank you.
Good morning, Grafton. My name is Helen Cheney. I live at 81 Merriam Road. I serve as the Conservation Commissioner in town, and I was asked by the Ingvall family to present to the town of Grafton the marvelous donation of property located at 93 North Street. And you're on the next slide. Okay. This acreage is 17 acres in size and represents in heart and soul the Ingvall family, who has farmed it for 4 generations. It encompasses woodland as well as fields. Perhaps being from my generation, you bought a Christmas tree there, warmed your hands near a wood stove barrel, and had a hot cup of cocoa. I can say I did, with fond memories, always admiring this unique, tidy little farm. Next slide, please. As a Grafton Conservation Commissioner, I am reporting the Commission's findings on this magnificent donation are that it is best suited for passive recreation. 2 independent environmental consulting firms prepared assessments to aid the Conservation Commission in deciding to accept the land donation with a unanimous 5-0 vote. The donation will encourage the preservation of nature and promote horticultural specimens as well as wildlife species. Activities could include bird watching, walking, or cross-country skiing and many more. As the Conservation Commission for the town, we have a responsibility to preserve open space. We need to look in the future to preserve for the next generation and the generations after that. This is a gift to our town. Much of the costs to finalize this donation have been cooperatively absorbed by the Ingvall family themselves. It is recommended that this parcel would fall under Article 97 and remain as open space, kept as open space. 93 North Street is a beautiful ruby in the Golden Crown. And as I have said before, our crown is Grafton. We all should be proud. Next slide, please. Oh, and there we are. Mrs. Virginia Ingvall was an active member in the agricultural and horticultural community. Make this final wish of Mrs. Ingvall come true. She wanted her farm, her jewel, to be preserved as open space and enjoyed in a passive recreational capacity. On behalf of the Grafton Conservation Commission, we wish to encourage you all to recognize this gift from a family that wants to give back to their Grafton to enjoy for generations. Thank you for your time, and I thank the Ingvall family for letting me present the donation of this proposal.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article 21? Yes, sir.
Just for the town's clarification and my own as well, I would love if somebody can just clarify the contamination of the soil, if any, and what responsibility the town has to that in a form of passive recreation.
Sorry, you got me? Hi, we had a couple tests done. With passive recreation, there's no remediation that needs to be done, and there's no reporting to DEP that needs to be done either.
Further discussion on Article 21? Hearing none, this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? declare the motion carried by the required two-thirds. Article 22,
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. DeFazio.
I move that the town vote to accept real estate comprising a strip of Lottie Drive that the original developer had inadvertently conveyed to an original purchaser of a lot on Lottie Drive.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on Article 22? Yes, sir. Oh, he wasn't going to the mic, just strolling. Further discussion on Article 22? Hearing none, this requires a two-thirds vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried by the required two-thirds. Article 23,
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Carlson.
I move the town vote to pass over Article 23.
Motion made and seconded to pass over Article 33 with no further discussion. All those in favor? 23, I'm sorry. 23. All those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 24,
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Prisby.
I move that the town vote to appropriate or reserve from the Community Preservation Fund annual revenues in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for its administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in the fiscal year 2021 as printed in the 2020 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 25,
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. Stock.
I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $73,150 from the fiscal year 2021 Community Preservation Open Space Reserve Account for the purpose of making the 12th of 20 interest and principal payments on the $1.2 million bond issued for the purchase of the Pell Farm property.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 26,
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. Thomas.
I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $71,550 from the fiscal year 2021 Community Preservation Historical Reserve Account for the purpose of making the 6th of 20 interest and principal payments on the $1.1 million bond issued for the restoration of the Grafton Townhouse.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 27,
Mr. Moderator.
Ms. DeFazio.
I move that the town, is my mic on? Thank you. I move that the town vote to extend the sunset provision set to expire on June 30th, 2020 for the previously approved $14,000 in Community Preservation Act funds to determine if a recreation trail can be developed from the North Grafton Elementary School to Institute Road, which such funds as previously authorized to be expended before June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 28,
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Carlson.
I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $5,000 from the Community Preservation Historical Reserve Account for the restoration of historical town records, with such funds to be expended by June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. I see people using the fans or using the paper for the fans. Those misters over there are really good for cooling down. We've got them we've got 3 of them out there. And I hope everybody's doing okay. Article 29,
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Prisby.
I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $140,000 from the undesignated fund balance account for labor and materials to upgrade the deteriorated roadway in the recreational facilities located at the Grafton Lions Club Dauphiné Park, with such funds to be expended by June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. The next, Article 30, Article 31, Article 32, Article 33, and Article 34. Be great if we just had one vote, wouldn't it be? But I'm going to allow discussion on all of those articles. They're all somewhat related, and I just don't think that we need to go through each one. We'll vote on each one separately, but we will allow discussion on all of them. Article 30. Ms. Roy. You can do it there, Colleen, if you want, or it's whatever you want. It's up to you.
Hello, so Article 30, I'm going to motion that we pass over because it has identical, almost identical language to Article 31, and that's the article I would like to discuss.
Second.
Okay, we already put it on the floor, so we can vote it down if that's the case. Is there further discussion on Article 30? Hearing none, all those in favor? Yeah, favor of what? Voting down. So Colleen said that she wanted to pass over this. I'm sorry, you're absolutely correct. Who was that? All right. The motion before you, that's great. Oh. I don't know. Okay, here we go. The motion before you is to pass over Article 30 with no further discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed? Declare the motion passed over. Article 31, Ms. Roy.
Hello again. So Article 31, reallocation of funds originally voted for the so-called Super Park. I move to see if the town will vote to rescind the vote taken under Article 5 of the October 19, 2015 town meeting that appropriated funds from overlay surplus for the creation of a play structure and surrounding park facility at the Peralt property, 4 through 6 Upson Street, and transfer the remaining funds, $241,000, to the Municipal Capital Stabilization Account, A4.131.626.4971, or to take any other action relative thereto. Man, it's hard to breathe.
Second.
All right. I don't know if you can see my slides, but I'll say next slide. At the fall town meeting, you guys voted to approve $290,000 to go towards a super park. You were shown images of a plan that cost $15,000. You were shown renderings of what that super park would look like. You were even showed the phased approach and the breakdown of what those phases would cost. Town meeting was told that the project already had $100,000 of CPC funds, and if you approved this $290,000, that the rest of the funding would come from private fundraising or from grants. Finance Committee, CIPC, and many citizens spoke out against this project, but it was approved at town meeting. Next slide, please. The Super Park Committee hit the ground running, and they took their plans to Planning Board in spring 2016. Immediately, this project had issues. The Planning Board expressed concerns over their plans. They asked to have an engineer make some adjustments. Months go on with the Planning Board putting Super Park on the agenda and the committee asking for continuances. Eventually, the Super Park withdrew their plans from the Planning Board in fall 2016. The project went stagnant. The Super Park Committee disbanded for lack of meeting per their charge. The $100,000 of CPC funds sunset and was returned, and that $275,000 sat in an account waiting for a project that appeared could not be completed as presented. Next slide, please. The Rec Department adopted this project, and in January 2020 spent an additional $34,000 on a new plan, a master plan. In that January Select Board meeting, an estimate of $1.3 million was given. But we were told not to worry, it wouldn't be that much. It could go up to that much, but don't worry, it won't be that much. A few weeks later, when that master plan was presented at Apple Tree Arts, a new price tag of $2.6 million was unveiled. Again, we were told, don't worry, it won't be that much. It could go up to that much, but it won't be that much. The Recreation Department has done a lot of work. They've rebranded, renamed, and recreated this project. It is no longer the same project that you voted on in 2015, and as such, I believe you guys have a choice. Do you want to use that money, $241,000, to go to our municipal capital stabilization account to help fund some of our $18 million capital backlog? That's about 25% of what we spend annually on our capital needs, so it could go to doing a lot of good. Or do you want it to go to a new, far more expensive Grafton Community Park? That is the point of this petition. It's allowing you guys to have the opportunity to say, never mind, maybe I want this to go somewhere else. Thank you.
Further discussion on the, on Article 31, the Recreation Commission.
Mr. Moderator.
Yeah. Yes, hang on. I'm recognizing the Recreation Commission first.
Okay.
Hello, Jen Anderson, Recreation Director. I'm here to introduce DJ Chagnon from CBA Landscape Architects, who was hired by the town in January to conduct our master plan for this park, and has a brief presentation for you.
Just a moment for Becca to pull my slides up for me. But good morning, Grafton. And as Jen said, I'm DJ Chagnon, from principal at CBA Landscape Architects. We're hired by the town to prepare a master plan and then the current proposal for Grafton's Community Park. The slide's going. Well, over the past 6 months, we've conducted a public process that's given us really robust community feedback about what the town wants, including an online survey, several public community meetings, and so forth. And we started, as Ms. Roy points out, with the master planning level to try to understand the grand scope and vision of what could potentially be on the site and make sure that we knew what the town was potentially looking for, with the full intention of narrowing it down to what needed to be built, and then put provisions in place to address those other needs later, if they ever happen, if the town found other funds to do so. And really that process led through schematic designs and everything else to narrow it down to the proposal that the Recreation Commission and the Community Preservation Committee have recommended before you today. So during that process, it became clear that the town really desired more than just a super park based on the comments we received. We were instead asked basically to design a park for all ages, needs, and abilities that could serve the whole town of Grafton and not just be a replacement of a super park playground. A playground still remains a defining feature, specifically an inclusive playground that will address the whole child, all children, every child at every level, not just physical recreation, but social, cognitive, communicative, sensory development, and so forth. But the park should also be a flexible, appealing space for that broader cross-section of the town's population and residents and visitors that can fulfill multiple functions: exercise, picnics, events, general recreation, and so forth. So what does a community park like that look like? Well, at its core, of course, there's still a playground. And I'll wait for the slides to catch up a bit. Yep, I will. There we go. Okay, so at the core of it, there's still a playground with engaging play equipment, inclusive, you know, a unique structure over soft rubber surfacing for full accessibility and safety. This image is really a preliminary design, and if the project moves forward, we look forward to working with the town to really select the right features for the site. On top of that, there was strong support. Oh, also key, sorry. The community park is adjacent to the new library. No, next slide is good. Thank you. The community park is adjacent to the new library and beyond at Grafton Common. It really does need a strong connection to those with safe pedestrian access, but it also needs to stand on its own with adequate parking and infrastructure for the park's uses. And then there was strong support for passive recreation, for walking paths, open lawn, seating areas, shade trees, and so forth, to organize the space and really create a bigger possibility on the site. And lastly, we're proposing an open-sided pavilion to serve as sort of a focal point and a picnic and gathering area, an event space that's adjacent to both the lawn and the playground to serve that need for being a multifunction space for as broad a cross-section of the town as possible. So here's how that all comes together on the plan itself. You've got an entryway off of the library parking lot that has a separate parking space for the town. There's space between the railroad tracks and the park proper that we can consider expanding overflow parking into in a more informal sense that also helps to separate the park from the railroad tracks a little bit. That was one of the things that came out in the public feedback, was a lot of concern about proximity to the tracks, which is very valid. Then there's sort of a central organizing axis of that main path that leads back to the open pavilion at the back, with on one side a fenced playground that contains open lawn areas, allowing for possible expansion at a later date if the town got other grants in the future. No one is proposing to do more than this now. And there's space to add other features in there, but if not, there's open lawn in a fenced environment that's safe for the kids to play in. Okay. And then additionally, there's a small lawn with a loop path. It's about a quarter acre with a paved loop path around it. And similarly to the possibility for expansion on the playground, one of the more frequently requested features was restrooms. The pavilion facility we've proposed has a possibility to expand and add bathrooms to the back, so we encourage putting the infrastructure in place so that if money for that ever became available through a grant or whatever else, there would be the opportunity to add that. All of that clearly is a broader vision than the 2015 plan. Those core goals end up costing about $1.19 million. Why is that more than the $528,000 that we discussed back in 2015? Well, I wasn't a part, but you discussed back in 2015. Part of it is just time. That $528,000 wouldn't be $528,000 today. And part of it is the broader vision and scope of adding additional features to serve a broader cross-section of the town. And lastly, some of the choices are being made for materials that might have a higher upfront cost now, like the accessible, fully inclusive rubber surfacing in the playground, but that will have a much lower maintenance cost over time, so that this isn't a drain on the Parks Department's upkeep budget. And none of that proposed budget would come from new taxes in any way. This is all based on existing money. The $241,000 left from 2015 is sort of the basis of that, and the CPC has put forward their funding proposal that I think is in one of the upcoming articles related to that and based on that. The CPC funds, for folks that aren't particularly familiar, come from taxes that have already been collected, and they're allowed to disperse it to certain kinds of projects only: housing construction, open space and recreation, and historic preservation projects. So there are fixed spending categories, and the CPC feels that they have the funds to support this project in the way that they're presenting. There's, as I said, been some confusion about the total budget. I want to be clear. The proposal in front of you today fulfills the town's goals. There is no planned next phase. So why is the Recreation Commission and the CPC feel this project deserves town support? To create a fully inclusive playground, which there's not really an opportunity for elsewhere in the town. The other spaces are either too small, have site limitations, have competing programming, or other restrictions that really make this a particularly unique opportunity to create such a broadly inclusive space. It'll be a true community space that's multi-generational, inclusive, accessible, and provides varied opportunities for all users of ages, abilities, interests, etc., for the entire community, and a destination that'll benefit the town as a whole right next to Grafton Common. And lastly, the time is right, really, to do this now, because with the library project ongoing, the parking lot is scheduled to be paved in fall of 2020. Moving ahead on the project at this time allows us to coordinate the infrastructure with the library parking lot so that we're not paying to do things twice. And doing it now will enable the town to also pursue a state grant that can help provide matching funds to reimburse some of the money back to the CPC if the town is awarded it. They're also, I understand, looking into other fundraising possibilities and so on that can help offset the project. But unlike what happened in 2015, we don't want to move forward with something and say, this portion is going to come from fundraising, because the matching grants won't allow us to do that. The state's rules say that the money has to be there and then the town would get it back. So really, the timing is right to move ahead with this if you're moving ahead with it. Otherwise, it's simply going to get more expensive again, as it did from 2015 till today on the playground portion. Thank you.
Matt?
Yes, sir, thank you. Finance Committee just wants to make a few comments. So on Article 31, we just wanted the town to know there's a high likelihood that we're going to see additional cuts from state aid in fiscal year 21. The idea of using free cash and/or stabilization's already been floated. This money that would be freed up from this article could certainly be used to reduce the free cash used for capital projects that will deliver next year. It would increase the amount of free cash available then to support the operating budget to fill that gap. Also, when we think about funding a project, typically you want to use funds with the most restrictive type of use first, and then you go with more general use funds. So if we are going to move forward with a community park, it should be paid for 100% out of CPC money, which is set aside specifically for this purpose, and not money that was transferred out of overlay. Finally, I just wanted to make a clarification around this is money that exists already. The whole bonding component of this project will be paid for by future tax collection. Thank you.
Mr. McInerney?
Hello again. I will be brief. A couple points of clarification. We bought the Peralt land 4 and 6 Upton Street in 2011 for $830,000. Town meeting voted to do that. For what purpose? They didn't know. They just wanted to preserve the land. They had hopes that the library would be expanded back to that back parcel, and finally it did happen. The delay that Colleen spoke of with planning, we were trying to coordinate the timing of the library project because we didn't have grant in hand, but we knew that would be the site, and we thought this use on that site would be complementary. The 241 and the idea of $18 million of backlog for capital. Capital gets funded on an annual basis of about $1 million. If you do not fund capital at $1 million every year, yeah, you will have a backlog of $18 million. I would argue you would have more than $18 million. But since you do fund it at about $1 million, $1.1 million a year, the $18 million is not an accurate depiction of where we stand in terms of capital backlog. 2012, 2010, we started planning for this high school. We built it. We tore down the super park that was at the corner where the tennis courts were. You all know this. But the process this community went through to set up a committee, site selection. I read a report from the Berkshire Group yesterday from July 2011 that had a $500,000 price tag in it for equipment only. So there's a lot of iterations. Costs go up exponentially past 5 years. Mr. Duchesne can talk to this about the construction cost increases over the past 5 years has increased 30% almost every year. So the economy's getting better. We just don't want to have an opportunity to have to miss an opportunity to come back and do this infrastructure with this 241. These are all tied, these next three articles, as the moderator mentioned, are tied together in terms of a master funding plan for one project using CPA money and the 241 that's already been appropriated by this body. If it's a reset time and we don't focus on the park, it's fine. I will just tell you that I've been here since 2008, and you've bought that land for a particular purpose, both to expand the library and services to the community. We thought this was a good synergy, given the outreach we did and feedback we got, to move forward with this plan as it stands today. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Further discussion? Yes, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Bill Yeomans, 297 Providence Road, South Grafton.
Mr. Moderator, could we have him speak up or turn the microphone up so we can all hear him? Thank you.
Yep, just turn the mic up. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator. My name is,
Wait a minute.
and thank you for...
Wait, hey, hang on a second. Who's talking here?
We have two people in the
Who's
gym
this
waiting to
gentleman right
talk.
here? This gentleman right here is talking.
Am
John
I up?
Ste-
Yes.
On the
John
field
Stevens,
first.
Chairman of the Community Preservation Committee.
Yes.
I would be remiss if I didn't say we miss Jim Gallagher today. He's had surgery and is unable to attend. He is the lion of community preservation. He would speak a lot better than I ever could wish to, a lot louder, a lot more, with a lot more humor. But this project has been supported from day one by community preservation. This has been a long process since the new high school was proposed. Over time, the project has changed, leadership has changed, CPC has not wavered in its support. CPC has only increased its support. CPC is in a local assessment, including a match from the state. We do, if this is approved, we do plan to bond for a large piece of what we plan to give. We've done that before. We will continue to do that with projects that we feel like justify a large sum of money. Quite personally, we owe this to our kids of Grafton. This was promised to them 10 years ago. A generation of kids have lost the opportunity to have a super park. And this is going to give them a first opportunity, all children to have, with all needs, to have one place. Right now, there is no place with that. Our schools don't have it. Our local neighborhood parks don't have it. This is something that will not cost you any more than you're already going to pay. You do not have to increase your taxes 1 cent for this to happen. I also want to read, which is very important regarding this particular article, using CPC funds. This is guidance from the state, and it's called the supplanting paragraph in prohibited expenditures, that Community Preservation Act monies may not be spent to supplant, which means to supersede or replace funds being used for existing community preservation expenses. A fund is supplementary funding source intended to increase available resources for community preservation acquisitions and initiatives. Quite simply, this means that if Article 31 passes, the remaining funds, the $241,000 that we're discussing right now, for Super Park cannot be replaced with CPA funds at this meeting or any other meeting. That's all I've got.
Yes, ma'am, right there. By the way, I have an umbrella up here. If somebody needs an umbrella, I can bring it to you. Anybody? Mr. Carlson? You all set? Great. You can turn that mic on. There you go.
Can you see? Okay.
There you go.
Karen Fleming, Brooks East Street. I just have, I apologize, just a couple of part question. Number one, there are lots of wetlands back there. Don't ask me how I know, but I know. And so I'm concerned about potential engineering costs on those properties as you start to expand out. And number two, there's not just one gateway into Grafton. And so for those of us who live in North and South Grafton, I am concerned about the allocation of funds that it talks about in regards to the other parks in town, which also are in severe disarray. And there's one missing on Perry Hill. So I don't know what happens to those parks. Do we just abandon them and let the gates fall down where they may? What is the Recreation Commission thinking about those other areas, and should we know what those potential costs will be as well?
Just so you know, Karen, Engine Company 2 did the Roney Park, corner of Bridge Street in North Main, and we do have plans to expand into the North Grafton area, Whitney Park and Perry Hill Park, just to let you know.
A few comments I'll hopefully get to in general, but just to speak on that comment. We do have a master plan in place with some ideas that have come along with discussions, such as a dog park or a multi-sport court. And so those all have been able to happen within the scope of that. And I think we might have a slide to do that. But again, that's not what we're presenting today. And so we didn't want to bring that into the mix. But I do also want to let you know that we have been addressing our parks and playgrounds, updating equipment, renovating and such, and we'll be continuing to do that. We also have now been, due to the beach closing this summer, have seasonal payroll funds that we're going to be able to use to address ADA compliance and other needs in our parks and playgrounds, so that's going to be very helpful. But please know, the idea of this is that it's large and centralized. It would be accessible, fully inclusive in town, so everyone from the community can come together in a centralized location. But we obviously would be addressing North and South. We did just update Perry Hill Playground 2 years ago. There is obviously a dilapidated section to that where the old school was, and that would be addressed as well. But we have made improvements and will continue to do so.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. McInerney.
Just one point relative to the wetlands and engineering. We've looked at this site a lot, both just with staff and with hired professionals, certainly the library site. And if Andy's here, he can probably talk about the particulars about the wetlands piece. We have budgeted money for the way back of that parcel for its use, for the passive recreation, if you will, in dealing with those wetlands. But we feel we're far enough away from them even now under this proposal. But if we were not to be, we have, it's in the budget to deal with those.
Okay, I'm going to finish up over here and then move over to here. Yes, ma'am.
Joanne Paget, 23 North Street. I came to Grafton 25 years ago today. I enjoyed the use of all the parks in Grafton with my daughter, who was a newborn. You can't go to the school parks if you're not in the school system. So I was a big user of the parks. I didn't know anyone. I met a lot of other women who were in the same position. My daughter, along with that entire generation, was devastated when the park was demolished. And it was promised, albeit without funds, that it would be put back. And yes, 10 years have passed. 10 years of many volunteers, many hours, desperately trying to appease the town at location after location, with plan after plan that fell on deaf ears, and maybe for a good reason, because today before you, the town is asking through the Recreation Committee that you fund the first ever fully handicapped accessible playground in Grafton. And maybe you don't know any parents with handicapped children, but I happen to have known many along the last 25 years. You cannot push a wheelchair on wood chips. You cannot push a child in a swing set that is not designed for them to be safe if they are handicapped. So whatever your mindset and your heart told you about coming here today, to take away the funds that were designated because it's taken too long to come up with a plan, I ask you to reconsider. And I ask you to open your hearts to all the residents of Grafton, those living here now and those to come, who may have handicapped children, who do not have a place to go. I am 60 years old and I'm hoping to be a grandmother in the future. I'd like to take my grandchild to that park and sit on a bench outside of the library, which is the only other resource that when you move to town is open to you, the parks and the library. We have spent millions on the schools, but you cannot access until you are in the school system. We have spent millions deservedly on the police station, but we cannot go and hang out there. We have spent millions on the fire station, but we cannot go and hang out there. And we have spent millions on the DPW, and we cannot go with our small children to hang out there. And now finally, the library that I worked on along with many other residents who still believe the library is more than a house for books. It's a place where we started many programs, Easter egg hunts and big truck parades and babysitting classes, where we funded and used books for those who still believe in reading. So it's natural for me to believe, because I do care about the library, that, by the way, would have cost $3 million at the time and now has cost 16, because we refuse to walk the walk. This is $1 million. This is going to serve every single Grafton resident, adult, senior, newborn, small child, middle school, anyone that wants to go there. And maybe you want to say, now is not the time. This is not the location. We have done that for 10 years. And I plead with you for a sense of decency to the heart of this community. Fund this park. This is going to be an asset for this town. Thank you.
Further discussion? Yes, sir.
I have similar thoughts, but I don't know how the whole town system works, but she had already mentioned that some of the kids cannot use play sets in the school area. So if you can repurpose some of the play sets or playgrounds that already exist, I don't see building another park is necessary, because it's not just about spending money about the park. We have to think about maintenance. And here in New England, 8 months in a year, it's cold. So I would propose something like a YMCA in Shrewsbury. There is in Whitensville, there's a community center. We'd rather have something that's indoor as well, because my kids, they don't know where to play tennis. I mean, always have to go out of town for indoor tennis facilities, indoor basketball facilities, because they only play maybe during the school hours. But we should also think about us. I mean, we probably need something indoor and outdoor, public-private partnership, so it pays for itself in the future, rather than just building another public facility and then pay as taxes to just maintain. I have a lot of thoughts, but I think I know I just want to be short. Probably I conveyed my message. Thank you.
Thank you. The next one? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is John with Patricia Drive. First off, I want to thank the passionate lady a moment ago. I thought that was a fantastic speech. Seriously, I love it. Here's not just my question, but I know a lot of people here are concerned about the money, and the money is a big deal. But when you invest into improvements in the town, you have to also understand that you're increasing the value of the town itself, and how that will increase your own property values in the future, how that will increase the property value of the entire town as a whole. In fact, earlier we just voted on the idea of selling 27 Upton Street, I think it was 27, from the DPW, which is a stone's throw from where the super park is going to be. And one of the questions I had for the town here, as you consider selling 27 Upton Street, the DPW space, Have you yet put any value to what that could possibly go for? And even furthermore, when it's so close to such a grand super park, is that actually going to increase the value of the property we're selling virtually across the street to actually make more money from the space that we're going to be selling across from the super park? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, over there.
Rice, 40 Browns Road. I have a lot of concerns about borrowing against future money. In 2002, we decided to join the CPA by a town meeting vote. We can free up our tax dollars. So all of you who have say live within our means, every year, last year, $453,000 of our tax money went to the CPA. I'm not here today, maybe in October, to argue that the CPA is not right for us right now during an override year, but that's something to think about, that we can say, let's put a pause on the CPA until we get our bearings around this override or no override, and use the money that we're already paying from our tax dollars, $450,000, to fund our operating budget. That's what living within your means looks like. Taking all of the tax dollars collected and using it for our operating budget. Thank you.
Yes, in the white hat.
Kristen Belanger, 30 Oak Street. I am the chairman of the Recreation Commission, and I just wanted to share some of the reasons behind this project in the first place, so everyone understands where the motivation is. With everything going on in the world, I believe it's time for Grafton residents to start prioritizing community. I encourage everyone here to think about ways that we can encourage it, reinforce it, and nurture it. Like Ms. Paget said, the library is no longer a place to house books. In today's day, a library is a community center, and this park is only going to add to that idea. The beauty of this park is the emphasis being put on inclusivity. Features of this park are focusing on groups that are typically left out in planning of recreational spaces. One group being the seniors. Feedback that I'm heard from seniors in other areas as well is that they need a place other than the senior center to socialize. They want to be with people outside of just their peer group. We need a place where people of all ages can interact together. It benefits both sides. The second group being children and adults with physical limitations. In this park, play structures exist where a child in a wheelchair and another child can be playing together at the same time, instead of a feature where the child's playing by themselves in order to accommodate their wheelchair or whatever it is. And then finally, the inclusivity being addressed has to do with the location as well. By creating one centrally located space, we're attempting to break up the segregation that occurs between north and south sections of town. We all know that exists, and we all need to change that mindset. We're one community, and we need to act like one. The current playgrounds that we have are part of neighborhoods. The majority of people using them are those that live in close proximity to that particular park. This does not encourage the one community mindset. And then the other thing that I wanted to emphasize is that voting yes for the park does not mean you're voting no for affordable housing. Most people want to do the right thing and help their neighbors when they can.
People in opposition to this park are using the affordable housing issue to persuade others to vote no on an ethical basis. Changing the course of this midstream after we spent 10 years planning through all the stages, fees have already been paid, and is ready for implementation in exchange for a what-if scenario that may or may not result in affordable housing, costs more to the town in the long run. We need to have faith in our plan and courage to move forward, even in uncertain times, and not let fear derail our plans.
Excuse me, I really hate to cut you off, but is this going to go much longer?
Nope, that's
Because
it.
I've restricted everybody to 5 minutes, and it's not getting any cooler out here, and there are still other people that have to talk, and there are people in the gym that have to talk.
Yep,
I
thank
don't
you
want-
very
I-
much.
Okay, thank you. So
Got a
we're going to go
couple
to the
people in
gym.
the gym here, been waiting patiently.
Yep, in the gym.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Bill Yeomans, 297 Providence Road. And the town, and by the way, I've been opposed to the super PAC since day one, and this is day 1,000 plus, and I'm still opposed to it. The reasons being, I think the town, right now, at this town meeting, we're going to be asked to allocate $250,000 from the current budget and then approve $700,000 for this phase of the project. But in reality, the Super PAC project has a price tag of $2.6 million plus. And for starters, I'm going to vote to rescind the money that's been allocated from the assessor's surplus account a few years back, and I think there's a remaining $240,000. I agree with the first speaker. That money should be returned to the general fund, and it would be available for many other things. I'm also a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've served on that committee for 5 years, and I'm not speaking for them. I'm speaking for myself as a resident of South Grafton. And the ZBA deals with the 40B affordable housing projects. And that's the goal of the ZBA. We conduct those hearings, we hear the projects that come before the town. The Super PAC, there are other priorities in this town besides what people have spoke passionately about for the Super PAC. Neighborhood parks are very, very important, and I think that this will hamstring the proper improvements in neighborhood parks, making them better. I think neighborhood parks play a big role. We're having development around the town in all different sections of the town, and the neighborhood park is a vital link to facilities for those kids and parents that live in South Grafton, North Grafton, and Grafton Center. The neighborhood parks should be improved town-wide. Are we going to make them super parks? No, but we can make them better parks. We can make them great parks. We can provide, perhaps in some of the land that's been given to the town and voted on this morning, I was going to say this evening, but voted on this morning, to accommodate some future development of a neighborhood parks. Regarding the comment on affordable housing, serving as a member of the ZBA, I mean, we see it firsthand. We're dealing with 40B projects that are really not in the town's control. I would like to see this money be spent on workforce housing developments, on senior housing developments that can accommodate the needs that we have in this area. The fastest growing population in Grafton is senior residents. We may be the slowest movers, but we're the fastest growing segment of the population in town. Affordable workforce housing and affordable housing for seniors should, in my opinion, take precedent over the $2.6+ million Super Park project. And again, I'll close with the comment that I'm going to vote to rescind the money, and I'm going to vote against every article on the warrant to support the Super Park project that is before you. And I would hope that sometime in the future, I get the opportunity at age 80 plus to stand up here and to be approving a project that is going to be accommodating workforce housing and senior housing. Thank you for allowing me to comment.
Further discussion? Further discussion on Article 31, 32, 33, and 34. Yes, ma'am? Right back there. And I would encourage, I've asked this question before at town meetings. Most people know what how they're voting. Please keep your comments short. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Jennifer Vaca for White Birch Lane. I'm parent of a child with significant intellectual disabilities, so it would be difficult to find someone who's more in favor of inclusive environments. I do want to say that inclusivity is not a swing, it is not a slide, and it is not a paved surface. It is the opportunity for your child to play with my child. And very often, when our children see a child with a disability, the other children walk away. For that reason, I do not support this measure, but I do support improvement at neighborhood parks, which would truly allow my daughter to meet children that live in her neighborhood and who may become more understanding of what it means to be disabled. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ms. Roy?
I have another one from the gym too, Ray.
Okay, can you hang on 1 second, Dave? Colleen?
Yep.
Colleen Roy, 53 Elmwood Street. I just wanted to speak to that $18 million capital needs list that we have. Every year we fund about $1 million of our capital needs, and that's trending downwards from year to year because we just don't have the free cash available to fund everything we need to do. In preparation for today, I rewatched last 2015 town meeting where we first discussed this, and our capital needs were a concern then. Only at that time, we had $9 million. That's doubled to $18 million.
Colleen, you got to stay within the scope of the articles. You're getting out. So say what you have to say. Stay within the scope of the article.
Just correcting the facts that were stated earlier. Thank you.
The gentleman in the blue shirt has been standing there quite a while, been very patient.
Hi, Jeremy Graves, Whitney Street. I will keep this as brief as possible. I love the passion in this town. I love it on both sides. We care about this. We want to provide great social spaces for all of us, not just our kids, not just perfectly abled kids. But I'm also an adult. I have small children in this town. They grew up just as the old Super Park was shut down. I think reminiscing about how great the old Super Park was is a mistake. It was awful. It was dangerous, and we wouldn't let our kids play there. Maybe it was great earlier, but at the end of its days, it was not usable. More to the point, we face a very difficult decision on Tuesday. That's a decision each one of us will make about how to fund what we want this town to be. And before us is an opportunity to recoup almost $250,000 to assist the town through a very difficult financial period. For that reason alone, I am in support of rescinding these funds. Thank you.
Dave, you have
Okay, you're next, Lydia.
Lydia Bogart, 8 Bernard Road. I'm here speaking as a private citizen. I'm opposed to spending even 1 penny of tax money on this so-called super park. We have no idea how deep the hole is going to be when they are done transporting the toxic soil out of that site. Right now, we are in the middle of an emergency pandemic. We need to be taking care of our schools and our public safety. Super Park is not part of that emergency plan. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Can I just ask if toxic soil, just a very inflammatory statement, can we get the OPM to opine on the dirt we've removed from the site? He's right there.
Yes, Andy?
I was just waiting for you to say yes. Thank you. The soil that's been removed from the library site in particular was petroleum-based. So there was an underground oil tank that had been leaking that's been removed. There was a Texaco station there for many years that's been removed. There's nothing left at this point. We've spent considerable amount of money to remove all of that contaminated soil. We've tested all the way back going towards where the proposed super park is, and that whole area back there in the parking lot has been clean. So at this point, there's nothing left, and even what was there was contaminated soil, but it was not grossly contaminated. It was pretty garden variety petroleum.
Thank you, Andy. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Chantel Kimball, 5 Bigelow Way. First up, I want to say how important this discussion is. I came in with a pretty fixed idea of how I was going to vote on each of these articles, and I'm not really so sure anymore. So thank you very much for everyone who has already spoken. My question is actually more of a practical one. With regards to both the $250,000 payment outright and the $700,000 that's going to be bonded, what do those annual costs look like, and what percentage of the overall community preservation budget does that represent?
I can attempt to answer. Is
Okay.
the chair of the CPC? He's getting his list.
Mr. Stevens?
This particular bond will be $85,000-ish a year. That will be declining. It's a 10-year bond. Currently, we have an informal policy not to bond more than 50% of our local surcharge. That's not required by the state. We could bond all of our money, so if we had other projects, we could actually do that. But to be fair to other projects, we want to have a large availability of other funds. We have other, two other bonds right now for the townhouse and Pell Farm. And let's see. This, for Super Park, it would start in 2022. He's got a wonderful spreadsheet that shows you how each one of these starts and finishes. The townhouse finishes in 2035. 2029 is when Pell Farm finishes. So as those roll off, just like the town has bonds, we have that money available, and we just approved those. They're this year $55,000 and $45,000 for total is $87,000 and $74,000. So $150,000 as those roll off. Each year there's an increase based on the increase in the property taxes, the evaluations rather of your homes. They have increased the match from the state, which is not guaranteed. We do not consider that. We cannot consider that in the way we do our budget, that's money that is above and beyond what we can use for a bond. And to speak to an earlier comment about to let CPA take a pause. You can't take a pause. We have bonded. So even if we chose to say we don't want CPA anymore, you have to have another election, and then CPA will continue, you will continue to have a surcharge because we have bonded. We will have no new projects, but I feel like, and I don't want to waste your time, CPA is something that is giving us so much more than we would have had if we didn't have it. We have so many things in our town, and affordable housing is a great project. We would love to entertain a project. We need somebody to come forward with a project, but we do not have $10 million. We only get about $500,000 a year. It's available as long as there's a plan. Somebody needs to come forward with the plan, and we will certainly address it.
Yes, sir, in the red hat.
George Liam Hool, 68 Carroll Road. I grew up playing on the Super Park within about 4 years of it being demolished. I enjoyed it quite a bit. In terms of the current plan, my concern is the fact that it has ballooned far beyond the original 2015 proposal. It has expanded its scope to become a new project. At this point in time, I think it would be better for the committee to simply just propose it as a new project rather than trying to pass it on the original vote. At this point, I think it would require a new vote where we could again look over every single thing that they wish to add, because at this point, it is not the original project, it is a new one. Thank you.
Another one from the gym.
Okay.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Lydia Bogar. I don't know exactly what's going on down in the field, but we here in the gym are being marginalized by not being called on more quickly. I also have a point of information. Perhaps the people who have proposed the Super Park and the library extension should have dug a little deeper into town records. In 1982, I was on the underground storage tank committee with Chief Gauthia's father. We found and made a list of every property in town that had an underground petroleum storage tank. The year after, there was a committee for underground pipeline.
Lydia, you started this off with a point of order. You have not come up with a point of order, and now you're talking about underground tanks. I either get to the point or I have to stop you.
The point of order, sir, is that you are regularly calling on people in front of you, and I don't feel that you're giving a fair shake to those of us in the gym.
Of course. And Dave can tell me when people are in line, and I've gone right to them. So, point taken. Dave, if you have any more?
Sometimes I can't get a word in edgewise.
Neither can I.
Thank you, David.
Welcome to town meeting. Someone in the gym here is moving the question.
Second.
And it's been seconded.
Motion made and seconded to move the question. If you vote in the affirmative, it will cut off all debate on Article 31. If you vote in the negative, it will continue debate on Article 31. Nope. All those in favor of moving the question? All those opposed?
Everybody in the gym voted yes, almost.
I declare the motion carried. So the article before you is Ms. Roy's article. She moves to see if the town will vote to rescind the vote taken under Article 5 of the October 19th, 2015 town meeting that appropriated funds from overlay surplus for the creation of a play structure and surrounding park facility at the Peralt property, 4 to 6 Upton Street, and transfer the remaining funds, $241,000, to the Municipal Capital Stabilization Account, or to take any other action relative thereto. This is a majority vote, and with no further discussion, all those in favor of Ms. Roy's citizens petition? All those opposed? Okay, one more time. All those in favor of Ms. Roy's petition? All those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 32.
Mr. Moderator, just a question.
Yep.
When you mentioned that we were going to talk about all the subsequent articles that
Yeah.
you mentioned beforehand, are we going to be talking about these in order still, or
Yes,
is conversation stopped?
I just wanted, Mr. Carlson, I just wanted to be able to have everybody talk about all of the articles at once. And if there's further discussion on Article 32, 33, or 34, we will continue with that.
Thank you for that explanation.
Article 32, Dave?
Do we have are you going to make the motion, Lydia?
I'm sorry, I have Article 32 here. Dave?
Mr. Moderator? Lydia
Yes.
Bogar again, sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
I am the one who initiated this petition with a group of seniors, and the only reason I have kept it on the warrant was to respect the wishes of the seniors, many of whom are still afraid to come out of their homes and come to town meetings, so I wanted their voices to be heard. Thank you.
This,
Is there a motion?
Lydia, this has to do with distribution of super PARC money.
Correct. And I agree with finance that we should pass this.
So your motion is to pass over Article 32?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor to pass over Article 32? All those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 33. Yeah.
Mr. Moderator.
As soon as she puts it on the warrant.
Mr. Moderator,
Sorry, Ms. Stock. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I move that the town vote to appropriate $250,000 from FY 2021 budgeted reserve to complete Phase 1 of the Super Park project, with such funds to be expended by June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Recreation?
Thank you. I was hoping to make a couple of points before the previous article passed, but thus here we are. So a couple of points I wanted to address from previously, so they may be out of order as in general for funding this project. One, it's really, this park and this proposal is completely independent from anything else that's happening in town. It's not taken away from anything else. It's not one or the other. Everything can happen. CPC sends funds to the Affordable Housing Trust every year. They do have the ability to run a rental assistance program immediately out of those funds, and CPC has offered to backfill those funds as needed. CPC, I understand people want them to immediately designate amount to rental assistance. That's not the case, I think, with them right now, and nothing has been proposed to them, but they would backfill the needs of the Affordable Housing Trust. We would now have to look at this project with the loss of the $241 in existing funds. CPC's approval of those funds is based on the fact that we would bring funds to the table, and we would need to supplant those funds in some form or change the scope of the project, which would have to go back to CPC to get approved. We still have the opportunity to approve this $950,000. $250,000, which they currently have, an FY21 budget reserve, $700,000 they would bond over the next 10 years. As John said, the chair of CPC, their internal policy is that they would only use 50% of the funds that they're dealing with. So there's still plenty of money for them to address other things. We would not be competing or inhibiting other CPC projects. There's nothing in front of them at this time. And they would still have funds currently, let alone whatever state match came into the mix to be able to support those things. We're also still within the scope of what you voted on in 2015. That article stated those funds were to be for the creation of a play structure and surrounding park facility. We're still doing that. That was originally really just a playground. We expanded that to make it more multi-generational. Added a picnic pavilion that people said that they wanted in one of our surveys, an open lawn, walking trails, all a space that doesn't exist in town for people of all ages to be able to come together. That loss of 241, just so I can state, also means that was going to be our immediate funds to be able to start infrastructure construction on this project. Therefore losing the opportunity to get in timing with that. So we would need to immediately work on replacing those funds through grants and fundraising. If these next two articles passes, we still have the ability to apply for a state grant in July. That's again why the timing of this is important. It's up to a $100,000 grant that is very few competitions for. 5 or 6 people usually apply for these grants. We're in a small town category, and they're most always funded. So it's a very good opportunity for that, which money would go back to the CPC. If I can address anyone else's concerns, I'm happy to, but hoping you'll consider still going forward with the project.
I have someone in the gym.
Okay, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Bill Yeomans, again, 297 Providence Road, South Grafton. Article 33 before us. I would just like to read the recommendations of the Finance Committee, if I may. Finance Committee has several concerns. The scope and price of this project have increased significantly beyond the original plans from 2015. There are many other parks and playgrounds in town that must be brought into, it said must be brought into ADA compliance and maintained regardless of whether this project goes forward. This is not the time to be investing in such a large project with unknown maintenance costs, and passage of this article will constrict the ability of the CPC to address other needs. I think that that's a key issue before us, that any monies that are allocated to this project are going to hamstring other important projects that may come before this town in the next few years. And I might add, there are incentives that are developed to get for-profit developers to come into a town to build affordable housing and to build senior housing. I'd like to see those projects that we're in better control of, not those that come before us as 40B projects. And I think that having significant dollars in the Affordable Housing Trust should be a goal that we have as we look forward, to increase that 10%. Many towns are giving 50 to 80% to affordable housing, and they're still doing the other projects. So I just stand by the comment made by the Finance Committee.
Dave, do you have further people?
I have
Linda
two
Bent,
more now.
Okay.
Linda Bent, 93 Millbury Street. My biggest concern about the super park is parking. It's still close to Grafton Center. Grafton Center, we cannot put lights there because it's a historical district. And I'm afraid that the added traffic where Super Park is destined to be is going to make matters even worse. Driving through Grafton Center is horrible, absolutely horrible. And I think where it's at is just a bad idea. Thank you.
Dave?
One more.
Alexander Reno. I move the question on account of the fact that it's pretty much just the opposite of Article 31.
Second.
We haven't had a chance to talk about those points. We haven't had the opportunity to.
I'm not hearing a second. Oh, just heard a second.
No second.
So I understood that to be you're moving the question?
Dave, did you have a motion to move the question in the gym?
Yeah, yes, I think I heard her say she moved the question,
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
and
but-
I heard a second.
Okay, so motion made and seconded to move the question. If you vote in the affirmative, it will cut off all discussion on Article 33. And if you vote in the negative, it will continue this continued discussion. All those in favor of moving the question? All those opposed? Declare the motion moved, the question moved. So the budget, the article before you is, I move that the town vote to appropriate $250,000 from FY 2021 budgeted reserve to complete Phase 1 of the Super Park project with such funds to be expended by June 30th, 2022, with no further discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed? One more time. All those in favor? All those opposed? Declare the motion defeated. Article 34.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Thomas.
I move the town vote to appropriate and borrow with the authorization of the town treasurer and under the control of the select board $700,000 over 10 years to complete Phase 1 of the Super Park project.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion. Dave, do you have any discussion in the gym?
Nobody in here.
With no further discussion? I'm sorry.
Ken Remillard, 2 Mountain View Lane. I'm going back on some articles here. We voted yes for a unemployment budget. That's telling me that we either have people unemployed.
You can't talk about that now. The
I
only thing you can
understand
talk,
that, but
the only thing you can talk about is Article 34.
That's my point. Why are we talking about funding something like this when we have people unemployed or are going to be unemployed?
Okay, with no further discussion? I'm sorry. John?
John Stevens, Chairman of Grafton Community Preservation Committee. Unfortunately, these funds cannot be used for anything but what is before us now. If you want a project for anything else, you need to bring forth the project and it will be considered for town meeting. But we're restricted on how we can spend our money. It cannot be used anywhere else in the town.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. McInerney?
Just 2 quick points. I have to just acknowledge the work that this group has done. At the special town meeting, you voted to allow the board to transfer an 8.8 acre parcel of land for 306 affordable units. When you add that to Prentice Place, you build those, you're over your 10% threshold is required under the state statute. So in terms of talking about affordability, we're building workforce housing and affordable units right now. 27 Upton Street, same thing. How many units can be there? Maybe 8 to 12. It depends what the market is. But I just wanted to make that clear that we're moving those things forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Anne Marie Foley, 45 South Street. Just a couple of points. One, I take exception to the statement that the previous park was a mess and was not usable. I would submit that actually the Super Park, the previous Super Park, in addition to the skate park, were the most utilized parks in this town. I served about 10 years on the Recreation Commission years ago. I was on the Town Fields Coalition, in addition to the Super Park Renovation Commission and the committee and the skate park committee I was a member of. So as to those parks either not being utilized or being able to be used at the time, I will tell you that they were the most utilized parks in this town and would continue to be so, particularly in a central location. This does not preclude other town parks that we have. They will continue to be maintained as they always have under the recreation budget. I just hope that people will consider voting for this. I think that a new park of this scope is going to be an asset to this town. It certainly will not be a liability in terms of our property values. Some gentleman brought up the value of the Upton parcel across the road. I think it truly will be an asset. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Elizabeth Haynes, 25 Trinity Avenue. I just want to say I'm also on the Affordable Housing Trust. Ed Prisby so generously brought up the idea of 25 Worcester Street as affordable housing.
Hang on. The motion is to appropriate $700,000.
Yes, okay.
Hang on. To appropriate $700,000 for Super Park has nothing to do with affordable housing. Nothing. So either get to the point or
Okay, yes,
stop.
my point is that if we have more housing at the center of town, especially elderly housing, I believe that this would be an excellent place for the elderly people to be able to walk and recreate. So I like this idea of the affordable housing, and I believe that the park would be an excellent addition to any affordable housing that we add.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mike Hurwitz, 53 Hudson Ave. I move the question.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to move the question. If you move the question, if you vote in the affirmative, it will shut off all debate for Article 34. If you vote in the negative, it will continue debate on Article 34 with no further discussion. All those in favor of moving the question? All those opposed? Question is moved. The question before you is Ms. Thomas's, I move the town vote to appropriate and borrow with the authorization of the town treasurer under the control of the select board, $700,000 over 10 years to complete phase 1 of the Super Park project. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a 2/3 vote. This is not a simple majority. All those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, you can put your hand, I'm sorry, you can put your hands down. I was waiting to see what Dave was telling me. I'm going to do this one more time. I apologize. All those in favor? All those opposed? I declare the motion carried by the required 2/3. I'm sorry. No. I declare the motion defeated by the required 2/3.
Could someone get Ray a water?
That's, no, I think I need a little Jack Daniels. I'm not sure.
This is a school, Ray.
This is, oh, that's right. Ladies and gentlemen, did I mention this is my last meeting? Okay. Article 35.
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. DeFazio.
I move the town vote to appropriate $36,000. Is my mic on? Oh, okay. I move that the town vote to appropriate $36,000 from the Cemetery Perpetual Cares account as detailed on the screen for the purpose of funding cemetery operations.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 36.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Carlson.
Move the town vote to accept the following hydrants from the Grafton Water District. Number 697, 4 Hitchens Road. Number 698, 4 Logan Road. number 699 14 Logan Road, number 715 Hilltop, number 701 34K Circle.
Is there a second? Second. Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 37.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Prisby.
I move that the town vote to accept the following hydrants from the South Grafton Water District. Hydrant number 122, DeRozier Landing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Article 38. Dave, do you have Lydia in there?
Lydia says she's going to move to pass this over.
Okay. Motion made and
Second.
seconded to pass over Article 38. With no further discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? I declare the motion carried. Article 39.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Spinney.
I move the town amend Article 39 of the general bylaws to limit the number of recreational marijuana retail establishments as printed in the handout.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Report of the planning board, Bob?
I think Justin was going to give this.
Oh, Justin?
Right behind you, Bruce.
Mr. Moderator, on behalf of the Planning Board, Justin Wood, the clerk, the Planning Board held discussion on this proposal, including some with the petitioner. The board has not, however, taken a position in favor of or opposed to the position. The discussions brought out a few significant points that town meeting voters should take into consideration. 3 proposed businesses have done market research and have shown with a serious investment of time and money that they believe there is market in Grafton sufficient to support all 3.
Can't hear?
All right, I'll start over. I apologize. Justin Wood, on behalf of the Planning Board, I'm the clerk. The Planning Board held discussion on this proposal, including some with the petitioner. The board has not, however, taken a position in favor of or opposed to the petition. The discussions brought out a few significant points that town meeting voters should take into consideration. 3 proposed businesses have done market research and have shown with a serious investment of time and money that they believe there is a market in Grafton sufficient to support all 3. The current bylaw will block one of them. The proposed change will allow the third one to proceed. There is a significant revenue potential for Grafton, sales tax revenue and additional revenue from host agreements, both being based on sales volume and property tax revenue, based on improvements made to each retailer's location, and thus proportional to the number of retailers. With 6 existing off-premises liquor licenses, the proposed bylaws sets a limit of 3 marijuana retailers. There are no known potential applicants for additional off-premises liquor licenses, which means that there is no known possibility for more marijuana retailers. With the proposed bylaw limit, future marijuana retailers are possible only if 1, the Select Board approves additional host agreements, and 2, the Select Board approves additional liquor licenses. With no retailers currently in operation in Grafton, there remains some uncertainty about actual beneficial and adverse impacts. It should be noted that each retailer requires a special permit from the Planning Board, and the board's review includes an assessment of potential adverse impacts, particularly including traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. Spinney.
Mr. Moderator, Bruce Spinney, 71 Potter Hill Road. I am a holder of one of the 3 host agreements that is currently active in town. There are 4 in total for retail establishments in town. Only 3 of us are pursuing any further. The Planning Board memo covered a lot of the basics of what this bylaw will actually do. I just wanted to provide some additional information on what my particular project would entail and what I think the benefits to the town are. So in my particular case, on 130 and 134 Worcester Street, would be the site of a retail marijuana dispensary, of which I have already acquired the host community agreement for. I would suspect that the annual revenue over the course of the HCA would be about $8 million a year, of which was mentioned in the previous planning board memo, about 3% for excise measured off of gross sales, 3% of the host agreement measured off of gross sales, and we plan to invest about $2 million into the property, which would be about $35,000 a year in property tax assessment as well. The tertiary benefits, of course, are having an abandoned building revitalized into an actual store. We expect to employ about 30 full-time and part-time people, hopefully as many as we can from the community, as I had mentioned in my host agreement. We expect that the surrounding communities and the availability of stores over the next couple of years will probably drive people actually into the town, which is good for our overall economic base. Consider people coming into town for this one particular piece and then staying for coffee, going to Coopman's, stopping at Stop and Shop, et cetera, et cetera. We're also pledged to use local contractors and tradesmen for my particular one, and of course I can only speak for my particular project. Several towns that are yes towns that are of smaller size than us, for example, Uxbridge and Mendon, all allow 3 or more retail marijuana establishments, plus additional cultivation, manufacturing, et cetera, which we allow as much as possible. I did see some signs across the street from me, so I want to touch base briefly on what my project will look like. And just please remember that this all has to go through the planning board process as well.
Come on, what? What? He's speaking. I'm sorry, Mr. Spinney is speaking. When he's done speaking, then I'll recognize other people. If you want to shut out stuff, do it some other place. This is not the place to do it. John, Bruce Spinney is speaking. When he's done, John, you can speak. Holy crap, what do you think, this is a selectmen's meeting?
Hey, I take exception to that.
Oh, I apologize.
Mr. Moderator, may I continue?
Yes, you can.
So the reason why I bring this up is this particular bylaw is in reference to 3 particular projects in town, of which there are no more included. So why I wanted to bring up what this project would look like is to make sure that some people here, if they're in the neighborhood, who are not affiliated with the community outreach meeting, the host agreement, and the planning board process, have some affinity for my particular project, of which we're building about a 3,000 square foot home, which will look essentially like a residential home with a porch on the front and all of our actual retail business being conducted in the rear of the building. It provides a nice natural buffer. We're allowed to mitigate noise and light pollution as well to neighborhoods, but essentially what we don't want is the neighbors across the street be able to see across and have just a sheet metal plaza type of building. So we're trying to accommodate those things, and I just brought them up now because I believe they're relevant to the discussion that's going to follow. And again, I want to state that everything moving forward, of course, has to go through a pretty elaborate special permit process with the town, of which will be a multitude of public outreach meetings and public discussions and hearings. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Further discussion on Article 39. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mary Smith. Can you please clarify exactly what a yes vote means? Is a yes vote for more licenses?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Brooke Badger, 23 North Street. I just got a couple questions. One's related to the planning board report. They said they spoke to all 3 parties. Now, I know when the first 2 came, we only had 2 licenses available. So my guess is those 2 people came and they had a business plan because they had 2 licenses. So now, years later, to throw in a 3rd license, I would expect that would have changed their business plans because you're now changing it from 2 licenses in the town to 3. In the same, when Mr. Spinney says it's a $10 million heat fixer in revenue, is that him personally, that business, or is that $10 million per business? And if it's overall, it doesn't change the benefit to the town, because I think what the more licenses you're giving, you're just splitting up that pie smaller and smaller and smaller. And since the fact that we don't even have one yet, we don't know what it's going to entail, we don't know how it's going to work, This is the regulation that the state gave. The town accepted it for 2. I think we should take a little time, see what happens. If it turns out that we need more, or we can support another one, then we get it. Otherwise, giving a third one, we could put all of them out of business, because none of them would be able to generate enough income to stay afloat.
Mr. Spinney?
If I could just directly to, I appreciate the question. My sales analysis is done by my team, and essentially the 8 million a year, not 10, is what my store at that particular location would provide, considering the fact that other stores would deploy in the immediate area in town, and also if other communities close to us continued, and you know, like say for example, Millbrae. Their particular shop is on 146. If they were to provide another shop that would have been closer to mine, we kind of anticipated those type of things. Because I mentioned was the average about 8 million a year over the course of the host community agreement, which of course is 5 years long. Just a brief background, we actually have 4 host agreements. They were all in some particular area of moving forward. 2 other candidates have gone through the special permit process now. Whether or not they actually get to the point where they open is a completely different scenario. This process is not as straightforward as a normal business. It has very unique settings. The CCC process, which is completely outside of our control, has a lot of control over who gets to the actual finish line. And as Brooke knows, because he was on the board with me at the time when we were going through some of these host agreements, we basically gave the host agreements out in anticipation of whoever gets to the finish line first. But we didn't consider that there would be more of a demand internally into town when we were going through these rules. That's why a couple of years ago we used the minimum guidance from the state in setting up these, because we didn't know how many people were going to apply. And when we set that bylaw in place, we had absolutely no applications. We had some additional work that we had done, which didn't end up very well. But here we are now. Later on, we have 3 that are actually committed to building projects in town, and we're trying to move them forward.
Mr. Moderator, just a point. I had
Yes.
a question to the planning board. Did they meet with the other 2 licensees? He said they met with all, I just want to know if they sat down with actually the other 2 licensees who said there's enough business in town to support 3.
Justin?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. And to Brooke's question, I can only speak to my memory. I did not review the past meetings to validate this before coming here today, but we did have the previous 2 retailers come to planning board for their special permit, and I do recall them both saying that they were confident that they would have a viable business even if there was a third allowed in town at some point in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall?
I guess the pretense of this article is to increase revenue to the town. But as this article is written, it seems likely that all 3 would be located within 2 to 3 miles of each other, and they'd be drawing on the same pool of customers, splitting, simply like Brooke said, splitting the pie 3 ways. The goal should be to attract clientele from maybe other surrounding areas to increase sales. And in that light, I'd like to offer an amendment to Article 39 for your consideration. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Article 39 as follows. At the end of Article 39, add, no more than 2 RMRs shall be allowed in any one section of town as defined by postal code. Now, whether you're in favor of this or not, or this passes or not, this would certainly go some way to actually bringing in more revenue instead of just splitting it up.
John, that's actually a substitute motion and not an amendment.
That's an amendment.
No, it's not an amendment. It's a substitute motion because you've changed, you've changed Article 39. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying it's not an amendment to the motion. It's an amendment to Article 39, which is different than what Mr. Spinney submitted. So it's a substitute motion.
I so move that.
Okay. I just need to see it, John.
Mr. Moderator?
Hang on. Hang on. It says, more than two RMIs shall be allowed in each section of the defined by.
That's how, the law doesn't, it contemplates the number, the license is tied to a percentage. So you wouldn't be conforming.
So you could put, so with this, you could put two more in 01560 and 01519.
If there's no zone there.
Well, yeah, if there's no zone, we have to go to the planning board, but this does allow two more in other states.
Provided there's, because they're all rule allow. That's all they're allowed. Percentage, you gotta tie it to a percentage of the liquor license.
Yeah, you're right. It is totally. There's a scope issue too. Yeah. It's the easiest way.
If anybody thinks this job is easy, give it a shot. So, Mr. Hall wants to add at the end of Article 39, add no more than two RMRs shall be allowed in one section of town as defined by the postal code. And what that does, this will allow 6. So you will have 2 in 01536, you will have 2 in 01519, and you'll have 2 in 01560. Because Grafton is the only town that has 3 of everything.
Point of order.
So, hang on, I'm not done. So, I'm going to rule Mr. Hall's motion out of order. Further discussion on Article 39.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Terry Turchin, 17 Nelson Street.
Again, Terry, you scared me.
I know, right? At this point, no. In the language of the motion, there is a strike through for 20% and instead substituting language for 50%. What is that number? Is that 6?
Are you talking about establishments?
In the language, right? I can't read, I don't have my glasses on. I don't have my glasses on. The number of recreational marijuana retailers, RMRs, that shall be permitted in Grafton is limited to strike through 20%, 50% of the number of licenses issued by the town under Section 15 of Chapter 138 for the retail sale of alcoholic beverages, not to be drunk on the premises where sold or take any other action relative thereto. What is the 50% number?
Okay, Terry, I can't answer that one. Maybe
I can
Ginny or
answer.
Tim.
I'll answer. Don't mind, Mr. Moderator. So currently, we have 6 off-premises liquor stores. So 20% of that gets us to our 2. We have to round up, but it's 1.2, I believe, was the number. So that's why we currently have 2 licenses. Switching that to 50%, 50% of 6 current licenses would get you up to 3 marijuana facilities. But it is important to note that those are the ones we have actively, but there are 3 other liquor licenses out there from the AABC that could possibly be filled. Nobody's planning on it, but if that's the case, if we have all of our 9 filled, it does change that number from 3 to 5. Yeah.
Mr. Moderator, through you to the chair of the Grafton Select Board. So if the other 3 remaining liquor license get granted, then the number then becomes 4.5 recreational marijuana.
Round up to 5, correct.
So, Mr. Moderator, my question is, I live in North Grafton. I think every one of these establishments are in North Grafton. I'd love to see one down at the Grafton Common, maybe by the dog bark place or on the backside of the Grafton Public Library. Here's my thing. I don't care if you smoke pot, I don't, but I don't want this crap in my town.
Terry, I just have to say, sarcasm is not your best side. Yes, ma'am.
Michelle Dalal, 16 Aspen. I am speaking in opposition to Article 39. We should oppose the presence of any increased retail marijuana facilities, particularly an increase up to 5. There are 100 plus no towns in Massachusetts, specifically because they realize downstream consequences of the revenue they might get. It's clear that tax revenues and fees may fall short of even covering the full public and social costs, including regulation, enforcement, public health and safety, and substance use treatment that comes with an increase in recreational marijuana. To speak to the statement that marijuana is safe and not all that bad, the psychoactive component of marijuana is THC, a chemical that impairs the brain. The amount of THC in marijuana in the 1980s was about 4%, and now that amount has increased to 15%. Marijuana extracts used in dabbing and edibles can go up to 90% because there are no regulations on those types of things. In multiple studies now show that marijuana is linked to psychosis, where individuals experience delusions, hallucinations, and have a break in reality, to the point that some people are saying that marijuana is to psychosis as smoking is to lung cancer. So who are the most vulnerable? Those who start to use early, our children, adolescents, young adults, and studies show permanent brain change and effect on its development, including mood disorders, attention issues, and academic problems. And when we have teenagers come into our office, where do they get it half the time? They get it from their older siblings or parents who use as a natural consequence of increased availability. On one hand, we talk about the importance of an override to improve our schools and the future of our youth, but we want to reap the tax benefits from recreational marijuana that will impact youth, increasing need for mental health services, counseling, substance use treatment, and be a gateway to addiction. So I ask, is this tax revenue from a third, fourth, or fifth facility worth the risk to our youth and town? For those who say who oppose this don't want this type of tax revenue, why can't we desire tax revenue from family-friendly and health-promoting businesses? So I urge you today, if you care for the youth of Grafton and surrounding towns, if you care for the health of our town, if you care to retain the character of our town, limit this to 2 recreational marijuana facilities, and please vote no to Article 39.
Dave, you have people in the gym?
We have 3 in the gym here. Bill?
Bill Yeomans, 297 Providence Road. Mr. Moderator, the town has voted to allow marijuana facilities. I think the previous comments, while well-intended, are out of order for this article before us. And while I have the floor, I would just like to say that I don't feel like I should be developing a positive article to accommodate someone's business in this town. I think that 2 licenses are quite adequate. If we need more in the future, we can come forth to a town meeting and bring forth an article to increase the number of marijuana facilities that we need. I don't like the inference that Mr. Spinney and his team are dangling candy in front of us, revenue candy. I would rather go with the 2 that we have. If they're successful and we need another one, then we'll do another one. But at this point, I see no need to approve this measure.
Okay. Next gentleman back there.
Yeah, Gopal Shenoy, 5 Chipper Drive. I'm just reading the Finance Committee's recommendation here, saying that this is in the strategic direction of the town to encourage commercial growth to allow more businesses in town. I could not disagree with the strategic direction that the town has, but I would sincerely hope that the elected representatives of this town would focus on businesses, not marijuana shops, other types of businesses that can probably increase the commercial revenue. There are lots of businesses, if opened in the town, could result in those people who shop at those businesses drinking coffee, going to Coopman Lumber, and it does not necessarily have to be marijuana shops. I'm afraid that lots of towns like Grafton have a problem where the drug use in school districts is increasing, and what the last thing we want to do is make it more easier for our kids to get access to marijuana or any other drugs. And I also would request the town moderator that it has not happened for the last few questions, that we limit the time that Mr. Spinney gets to justify or to further support his business case, because I'm sure, being in marketing, that I can very easily put business analysis and make a business case with projected sales that could be in the millions of dollars. Being in the business, I know I can do that and make any business case I want. So I encourage the residents of Grafton to stand up for the youth and the community to vote no against this motion.
So just
Did I have one
just
more?
so-
Nope, I'm done here for the moment.
I'm sorry, Dave, hang on just one second. Just so everyone knows, is that the only time that a moderator can limit the amount of time that a person is speaking is on their second time up to speak. Mr. Spinney is on that second time if he chooses to get up and speak, and I will limit it to 5 minutes. Yes.
I have a question.
Motion made and seconded. Yes, ma'am. I'm going to let you speak, but I'm going to move the question.
Okay. Has anybody else been to a dispensary? I have. If you go to one of the dispensaries, it's not the backyard here and giving drugs. You have to have your ID, you have to be over 18. They give you stuff you have to either order online. It's not going to your children. Have you ever, it's not going to your younger 18-year-olds. I'm 34. I even have to give my ID. I have to proper paperwork. Have you guys ever had cancer? Like, that helps. You don't even know what things would work for you. You guys are saying, oh, it's my kids, it's my kids. No, he has a plan on, Spinney has a plan on doing it legally with the state and everything. So he's not gonna give it to your children or someone else that needs it. There is a need in this town for dispensaries.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded to move the question. If you vote in the affirmative, it will cut off all debate on Article 39. If you vote in the negative, it will continue debate on Article 39. With no further questions, all those in favor of moving the question? All those opposed? The question is moved. The article before you is Article 30, Mr. Spinney's Article 39, which is a citizen's petition, and this is a majority vote. With no further discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed? Declare the motion defeated. So before we, I just want to get down to the end. We have two articles left. One we're going to pass over. I just want to again thank everybody who put this thing together. Just an amazing situation here with all the chairs, all the people outside. You guys have been very, very, very patient, and I appreciate that. And we look forward to October with a new moderator. Article 40.
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Carlson.
is the petitioner here?
He is. Ray, do you want me to come up?
This is, no, Article 40?
Oh, sorry, my
Yeah.
fault. I can't, it's late, I'm sorry. I can't count.
Okay, so hang on 1 second.
I'm excited. Yeah. I don't think you can do this anymore.
Yes, sir. Been very patient sitting here all this time and sitting out in the sun. But I just want to explain before you go into this, and you may not want to go into it once I'm done explaining it, is the process for road acceptance goes through the Board of Selectmen. It does not go through a citizen's petition. As a matter of fact, it can't go through a citizen's petition. It has, the only way that that the town can accept a road is that the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board proposes that after all the meets and bounds have been set and all of the planning board articles items have been resolved. And so I'll let you speak, but I'm not going to allow this motion, so I apologize.
Okay, my name's Al Rubicki. I live at 28 Fitzpatrick Road. I'm just moving that the town meeting approve Article 14 as printed in the warrant.
Article 40?
Article 40.
Okay, thank you. At this time, as I just explained, I'm going to rule Article 40 out of order, and we'll move on to Article 41.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Prisby.
Thank you. Move that the town convey 25 Worcester Street, Grafton, Massachusetts to the Affordable Housing Trust for nominal consideration for the purpose of constructing senior, age 55 and over, affordable housing, or to take any other action relative thereto.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the article. Mr. Prisby.
Mr. Moderator, there's a point of order.
I'm sorry?
Council has a question for you.
Last one. I promise this will be quick. But before I start, I want to just say, no matter how this vote goes, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I'm really proud of my town. During a pandemic, during a heat wave, I know it's hot out there. Thank you so much for sitting through this entire thing. My motion is really just an idea. We do have a shortage of affordable housing here in Grafton, Massachusetts, and we do happen to have land at 25 Worcester Street that we haven't used since 1980. And I was reading a study recently performed by the University of Massachusetts that tells us that 62% of all seniors living alone in Massachusetts are considered economically insecure. Now, that is the highest percentage of senior economic insecurity in the entire country. Now, what does that mean to be economically insecure? It doesn't mean that you're living in poverty, but it does mean that you don't have enough money to meet your daily needs. So you have to choose between things like food or medicine, heat or electricity, your health or your ability to maintain a roof over your head. And as some of you may know from living through this yourselves, or some of you out there might have parents who are going through this, finding suitable housing for seniors is incredibly difficult in Massachusetts because we just don't build that much of it. Well, here in Grafton, we do have an affordable housing deficit. Now, as the town administrator pointed out earlier, we are working on that. 8 Pine Street may come through with enough units perhaps to get us close to the 40B threshold. That's 10% of our units being in a subsidized housing inventory, but it may not. We can't count those units quite yet because there's been no purchase and sale yet, and there are still contingencies with that plan. I hope it comes through, but in the meantime, here we are, still waiting for an affordable housing development in Grafton after all the years that we've had the Affordable Housing Trust. And one of the bars to getting the Affordable Housing Trust from point A to point B is resources. Number 1, money, and number 2, land. The Affordable Housing Trust doesn't have land, but the town does. In Grafton, Massachusetts, 13.2% of Grafton, Massachusetts, or Grafton, Mass families have an income of less than $25,000. Older residents living in poverty in Grafton doubled from 2010 to 2016, just 4 years, to 233 residents. That means, this number comes from our affordable housing plan, that almost 10% of seniors living in Grafton are living in poverty. So I'm asking that Grafton deed to the Affordable Housing Trust the property at 25 Worcester Street for the purposes of building senior affordable housing. It would be low-impact housing for that area, and it would serve an enormous need for seniors, not only in this community, but also living in the area, to be able to maintain a home in the place they grew up, in the place they've always called home, safely and securely, and be able to live out their lives, not having to choose between food and medicine, between housing and health. Thank you very much.
Further discussion on Article 41.
I have one
Yes,
from
sir.
Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, that's mine.
Who's
Yes.
next?
Hey, Ray. Bob,
Dave,
Bob,
you'll be up next. Bob, good
I
to
just have
see
a
you.
quick
Good to
question.
see you.
Good
I
to
didn't
see
know
you,
you were
Ray.
out there.
Good to see you. Congratulations. You did a great job all these years and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hopefully between Spinney and Concord, we'll have a great moderator. Thank you. Quick question for you, because I don't know. Where's 25 Worcester Street?
25
What
Worcester-
is it?
25 Worcester Street is the vacant piece of land when you're heading up towards the center of town where the old Norcross School was.
Okay.
Probably
so
don't remember the Norcross School, but it's on the right-hand
No,
side.
I remember.
Okay.
I don't remember the school, but I know where the property is. Correct me if I'm wrong, through you to the town administrator, that's a piece of property you've had your hands on and your eyes on for a long time. And if I remember correctly, going back to one of our earlier articles, that was a piece of property that the Super Park Committee really pushed hard for, I think. So I'm just wondering, it is a great piece of property, Mr. Brisby, you're right, it's an awesome piece of property. It would look, whatever they build in there would look great. Is the town willing to give that piece of property up now? There was always some problems with the fire department had a problem taking a left out of the place or trying to climb the hill, and there was all kinds of things about that property that was banged around over the last 10 years. So I'm just asking, that's all.
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. McInerney.
So I wasn't here when the fire station or police station were contemplated. That site was looked at for either or a combination facility, and I think there was some sightline issues and vehicle access problems. Super Park was the second best thing to go there. I don't think we got a lot of traction, as that is a premier site along Worcester Street. You do have access along a bus route with WRTA's paratransit program. You can walk to shopping, you can walk to the Common, you can get down to Stop and Shop with a little bit of trepidation at the end of Worcester Street, which hopefully we'll deal with. This concept is a good one, and we should pursue an assisted living facility at this location, or 55 older housing. I just don't know if the mechanism in which to transfer directly to affordable housing would work just on its own. I think we should do it just like we did 27 Upton Street, which you just voted on, and 8 Pine Street. We had to go through a process of procuring it, so we send it out with our specifications saying we want to build X, and we get proposals back. And then the town meeting would authorize us to dispose of the property for that purpose, just like we did for 8 Pine 3 hours ago, and we could do that. But I'm not so sure we can just give it to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Brooke Padgett, 23 North Street. I just want to echo Tim. I would imagine, you can ask council, this has to go through RFP. And as Mr. Prisby said, affordable housing doesn't have a lot of money, so it made more sense. I don't know why it was a citizen petition and didn't come from the select board. It seems more sense to come from the select board, that they could then utilize the town's resources to RFP it like they have the other two things. And just in, my last thing is the little statement by Mr. Prisby at the end about where people are economically in this town. I wish he had thought of that in the middle of a COVID when they proposed an override.
Bob?
Just
Everybody's the moderator. Bob.
Exactly. Just for clarification, that doesn't mean if we deed this property over to the Affordable Housing Committee that they're going to be the general contractor, correct? I mean, they're going to deal with somebody, bring in a real company that knows what they're doing to build affordable housing in 55 and over, correct?
That's right.
Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 41.
Did anybody from the gym want to speak? Someone was, oh, okay,
Anybody, Dave?
nothing from the gym.
Okay.
Anybody
Yes,
here?
yes, ma'am?
I just, Joanne Rosalia, and I want to just express my support of the article. I think, the 10% is great. We need to get there. And as we build new housing, population increases, that number's going to move. So we'll be at 10%, but then in future years, we're going to have to build more to keep at that 10%. So, thank you.
Further discussion on Article 41.
From the gym.
From the gym.
Margaret Haynes, 25 Trinity Avenue. There is no RFP at the moment, correct? Okay, I'm assuming there's no RFP. So handing the land over to the trust doesn't actually further the process at all. It's a gesture, correct?
There are other steps that need to be taken prior to this, Mr. Prisby's petition
Right.
to be finalized. Yes.
So the consequence of voting for it or against it, there actually are no consequences. It's the same, if you vote for it or against it, it has the same effect.
I am not going to answer that one.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on Article 41. Hearing none, this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of Mr. Prisby's Article 41? All those opposed? I declare the motion carried by the required 2/3. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you very much.